and just hit the big red button and get it rolling, because we were in the middle of a conversation, and they're like, shit, we should talk. I don't know if I gotta take that back or whatever. We'll see if YouTube cares. But yeah, so we were in the middle of a conversation we were talking about, because, hold on, now I'm going to typewrite this conversation. So there's an ongoing conversation with our D&D group, because our DM Vesper has been talking about how because they've jumped into a completely homebrew world, and they're talking about struggling with keeping all the like session prep and remembering all their own details, or making up their own details or whatever. So we're discussing how we want to kind of work stuff in future. And that kind of, I brought that up to Lucky because that's why I was slightly distracted before starting it, and we got off into a completely different conversation about just game design and game running philosophy, period. Because I think there's a lot of different ways people can handle stuff. And obviously, the most important thing is, as the GM, you're doing the heavy lifting. I said this to Vesper earlier. You're doing the heavy lifting, so you have to find the rhythm that works for you. I know there are some GMs who are like, but I'm trying to make it easier for the players. But listen, players have the easiest job. They got to keep track of like one thing.
I don't know. I want to say one thing.
Well, broadly one thing. Like, depending on what kind of setting you're in, what kind of characters you have, you might have multiple things you're juggling, but in general, you have to care about everything that's connected to your character.
Yeah. Like, I'm about to say, like, bringing up Arma. Arma's a leader-type character, so there's a lot of times when she has to think about, things and structures, like more logistics and whatnot, and how to deal with other characters. Prime example of this is when she sent the boys out on, a mission. And so other times, there have been some role-playing opportunities where I'm just like, hey, May, give me these reins for a second. You're just like, I'm gonna sit back for a second. But, like, that's definitely a thing. Like, Lucky, as doesn't have a lot of GM experience, he only has a little bit, and I've never actually GM'd anything that's Omega been in. As I said, I keep repping my Torchlight game, but as I said, I don't have a lot of interest for that. No one wants to jump on the Lucky GM, but I'm pretty sure everyone's afraid that I'm just going to murder them all.
Some people are actually, but also it's just like, as basically an almost perma GM, like, that's why I was really interested to get into this D&D thing, because I don't get to play games ever. Because it's a lot of work, and I would say that the general rule is that, the GM has to have the passion, right? That's the thing we talk about, the heavy lifting. You have to actually care about the story you're trying to tell, or the setting you're trying to explore, or whatever, or the characters. Or just the love of the craft. Because there are a lot of very generic settings. Right now, we're literally having a discussion about whether or not changing which D&D setting, quote-unquote, we're in, if that would actually change anything. And I threw a comment, I'm like, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if D&D actually cares that much if you start shuffling around deities and shit. And the general assumption from the other players who are more experienced is that it doesn't.
It really doesn't.
Dallas is telling a story about how apparently he was in a campaign where an entire plane of existence got blown up, and it didn't actually break anything. And I'm like, no, that sounds like D&D. There's a lot of planes.
But
so what I was going to say about you is that's I don't really want to pressure Lucky into GMing anything. If Lucky feels like he wants to GM something, which with Torchlight you kind of do, you've been working through that idea a lot, but that's the thing where I'm like, listen, if you're not ready to finish writing and running that, you're not ready. So that's entirely a thing that you have passion on. This is why you understand this too. This is why you don't try to ride me too hard about getting back to Mages of War, because you know that I have to be in the right mindset to do that work.
Well, for me personally, with Torchlight, I keep, like, every time I put up for call for players, I never get any. Like, it's like, you acts as, express interest. Ron had expressed interest at one time, but Ron has fucked off to who knows where.
I don't know. So I think...
Yes.
When was the last time I saw him tweet about something? Was it retweeting something about video game art? I don't know.
Yeah, but, so, like, I'm a person...
here's the thing. We've certainly grown the community of people, either in the actual cabal or just people in the background to grab some randos.
Mm-hmm.
I bet if you put out a call in, like, trad games, you'd probably get more hits now. But then there's definitely kind of that discussion, right, of like, okay, do I know you? Do I want you in my game? Yeah. There's always a little bit of a feeling out process, and we're arguably still undergoing this with D&D. Like, I think several of our characters as players have gotten less extra as we have adjusted to the GM and the other players.
Mm-hmm.
I got a lot more den mothery as we played. We've only played like 2 or 3 sessions. So you have to like kind of pilot out people, and if you're doing completely original work, like the way you've set up Torchlight, that's not gonna work for you to just like grab some people and like pilot them. So
no, I have to. There has to be like I said. There's actually gonna have to be some goddamn setup, and people are gonna be like, all right, you guys can't like. The problem with Torchlight is I have to tell players what they can and can't make, and personally, that's kind of a faux pas in my opinion because it kind of restricts players and railroads them a bit. And while I believe a little bit of railroading is good, too much and characters will not have fun with the characters they've made.
Yes, you definitely need to find the right rate. Like I did this with our Star Wars game. I was like, okay, this is a Clone Wars campaign. You should make Clone Wars characters like Jedi or clones or somebody else. We could have some flexibility there. They have like I even said that we could probably break the rule and let you guys pick like Republic diplomat or senator as your first specialization, even though as universal specs you're not supposed to take those for free at first, but Omega often finds at times that he doesn't necessarily care for what the rules say. It's all about what feels right to the game. So there's a little bit of that thing, right? Of like, okay, there's the initial setup. Some people call this group template. Some people call it session 0. Whatever. You have an initial buy-in. Yeah. And sometimes this initial buy-in is at the game level. If I was to like, okay, I'm running the Dresden Files RPG, then all right, we have to play Dresden Files characters. But depending on what we're doing, that can be a lot more flexible. Now, the way the Dresden Files, the original version of the RPG is written, usually you set a longer-term campaign in like a city or a longer-term setting. So that can be limiting, right? Like if we're like, okay, we're doing our Dresden Files Seattle. Well, okay, then your characters have to have a reason to be in Seattle or Portland or any other weird old Northwestern place. We kind of futzed around this because I made some limited run scenarios. But even them, some of those were set in town settings I set up as examples, right? Like, I made a setting for Arkham, Massachusetts and Ransom Adventures using that setting because that gave me background materials. True sandbox running, because this kind of goes back to how we started this point on like styles of running games. Truly sandbox games, those require a lot of improv, a lot of freewheeling, and usually require a setting that is very, very open-ended or almost flat, right?
And that's what my Torchlight game is intended in. The way Torchlight is set up is like the first episode is basically a railroad section for people to get meshed, but then once you get actually into the town of Torchlight, it kind of becomes almost a adventure or mystery. I'm trying to build. I haven't really got too much into the city bit, but that's because I am literally of the opinion of I'll see you there when I get there. Like when you want to make a sandbox situation, like sandbox situations are really built on what the players want to do. Honestly, like for example, say the players get torchlights, they're banged up and they need medical attention. So as a GM, my first thought is, all right, so they're going to want to find medical attention. That probably means they want to find a hospital or clinic. That means I start thinking around of what a hospital and clinic will do and start building from there. And then from there, determine the consequences of what would have happened to said hospital or clinic, what kind of supplies would go in there, and what kind of enemies they go in there. I think the hardest part about maybe a sandbox situation is usually coming up with the challenges on the fly. Because if you don't have like a whole bunch of pre-generated enemies just standing by for you to toss on whatever, you have to kind of go at it a little on. Sometimes you might lowball or highball the difficulties and give your players a hard time. I will say though, one of the reasons I've been a little shy to pull the trigger on Torchlight is Lucky's a fan of failing forward.
Failing forward is that's one of those things that like came out of like the early, I want to say 2000s of game design. Probably about then is when we realized that just rolling a d20 and you rolled a 10 and you failed, that sucks.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty key mechanic that I think I love in a lot of games.
Yeah, so Lucky is not the person who will totally give you an encounter that is way too hard for you, but the point isn't to actually kill the thing, it's to circumvent or escape the thing. Like, this is one of those, as I said, I'm trying to incorporate, not full on, like I said, Lucky's been doing some rewriting, and he was all like, as much as fun as it would be for Shib Nagurath to come here and auto some players. That's probably just wish fulfillment on my part, and I probably shouldn't do that.
In writing, by the way, we call that kill your darlings. You have to be willing to cut the parts that you really, really want to include, but they don't work for people.
Yeah.
I actually had kind of a thought about that earlier today designing Star Wars. I was like, okay, there'll be some cave shit, and like, I wanted to be like, and then there'll be a giant monster, like that cool boss fight in Fallen Order. Then I'm like, that doesn't really fit the pacing, and then I'd have to design another giant monster fight. I'll skip it and come up with some other stuff. I think now that there won't be boss conclusions and we won't end some mini story arcs in the Black Garden adventure, but I ultimately decided to set a very different tone for basically the final back half of the game, and hopefully it plays well. We'll see. I've been listening a lot to versions of "Can You Hear the Cry of the Planet?"
Oh no! But actually, let me close Twitter here for a second. But so one thing is like, if I throw this challenge at these players, are they just going to stubbornly try to keep poking it with a stick until they get squished, or will they have the what's the word I want to think? I want to say wits or cleverness, but
situational awareness.
Yes. I don't know, Ax. If like a giant dude who's just like looks like he might have a bunch of wounds is not going down, just wrecking everything in fucking sight, and you got nothing but maybe some common hand pistols. Like, is your first instinct, I'm gonna fucking shoot it?
I mean, depending on the character, like the character I built forever ago would definitely like try and pop some shots, a pop shot system. But well, hey, this is a conversation we've had with our own Star Wars game of like where like there were things which was like you guys tried to like puzzle solve or like diplomat settings, and I'm like, dude, this is like an ancient tomb robot thing.
Yeah,
I would like. I have written this with the idea that you would punch this.
Yeah, like here's the thing: if I have to go with the intention of oh god, I literally just thought I don't want players whose first instinct to everything is just to fucking punch it. Like
yeah, and that's part of the I don't want to say auditioning, but the like understanding your player base.
Yeah,
that's important. And Lucky probably knows this about me because I do this about like games and settings, but in general, I like to wholeheartedly embrace games and tools and rules, and then after that, I start fucking around with the stuff that doesn't work for me. Like, I like to get in there and do stuff. Like,
it's gonna be it's gonna be closer to Resident Evil. I said there's gonna be a lot of combat. There's gonna be a bunch of weird shit. There's still gonna be mindfuckery stuff.
Yeah, I think the idea you're going for is it's kind of a leaning towards a survival horror type stuff where like you need to think ahead and marshal your resources to solve problems. And if you just go blat at everything, you might win some fights, but you know it won't always work.
I know what I'm talking about. It's not Resident Evil. It's Silent Hill.
That's a good one. Yeah, you can actually tackle some. Actually, literally just brought up Silent Hill. Yeah. Yeah, where fighting is not your foremost response, but occasionally you do need to defend yourself so you can actually get to your goal location and stuff. And a lot of that really depends on what you're going on.
Like, I will say right here, there's the big set piece in the in episode 1, which hang on 1 second.
Hanging on. Deep breath. I could read the Patreon bit, actually, if you're...
Yes, please, read through Patreon.
Yeah, because we've been going for about 15 minutes and didn't do that yet, so now's the time to naturally do this. And remind everybody, this episode is brought to you by our patrons like Comics, Architect 10, Blacklist OG, Carlos, Qua, Jeremy Vasquez, Kylie Denton, Legendary Boss Hunter, Nestor Flores, Rogue Robin, Shawnee P, Some Guy Named Bob, Sodasan 0424, Ciderin23, VideoGamer75, and Zach Reed. If you like what we do want to see some more, consider supporting us on Patreon. You get access to episodes early and lots of other goodies. It really helps us out. And also, by the way, I would like everybody to know, this episode is so far not what we plugged on Let's Talk FGO yesterday, which just went live today. Like, we're just in a completely different morass, and we'll actually get to the other stuff we wanted to talk about later.
Oh, yeah. So, like the themes I'm going for is basically a survival horror with like themes of morality and whatnot. So, like I said, episode 1, I have titled The Beginning of Your End. And the ending track, I haven't picked an opening track, is Short Change Hero, the Heavy.
We use that one a lot. I think we use that in one of our Monster Arts games.
It's a great song. But yeah, let's see here. Yeah, I've actually written a bunch of my my cliff notes here, like of just how I plan to go. It's listed here: Awaken the Dreamer, A Bridge Between Worlds, Out of the Fire and Into the Forest, The Past Left Traveled, Old Mine, New Problems, What Goes Bump in the Dark, The Undefeated, Welcome to Torchlight.
Those are pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining the little of like the screen as we go through those different sections.
Yeah.
Look, so, very very much like Final Fantasy VII with its chapter starts.
Yeah. Basically, I'm not gonna have super hard and fast rules for which each of these sections do. I'm pretty much planning on ad-libbing it most of the while, but I have basically set pieces that I want each section to hit, and I will. This is one of the reasons why I am a fan of ad-libbing, improv, and whatnot. Is I think something that I'm pretty sure everyone has told Vesper many times. No plan ever survives contact with the players, and being able to improv and be able to take whatever the player's throwing at you and then still turn it back to what you are trying to aim for is something I think is very important. I've heard a lot of stories of GMs whose players just go on a completely left field, do something completely different, and they just run with it. But I always like the karmic backlash of when I think my favorite story is the players went to a kingdom and for some odd reason they wanted to establish gay marriage and whatnot and went on complete another side quest to do it. And they accomplished it, and there's rejoicing. And at that point, the fucking head-to-end army overran the fucking kingdom because, timers were going.
Yes, that's one of those infamous stories of just the players, or at least one player, really, really, got a hair up their ass to go in a certain direction, and then it's just yeah, okay. The GM just all right, yes, all right, cool. You do that, you're doing that, sure, you rolling stuff, and then it's just
well, the thing about timers, Axe, is
usually... Axe interrupted me with a peanut gallery comment.
Yeah, he did. Is, usually, if you're playing a game, usually the GM should give the player some sort of hook to start with, or on the other hook can say, all right, it's your world, go do fucking whatever. Honestly, that's what I'm feeling with Jin Sakai, honestly. Omega, I don't know if Omega actually has a big story planned, or he might just be like, all right, you nerds, here's the fucking world, go do something.
Yeah, honestly, the way, especially because I spend so much time developing... So, the thing about sandboxes is you need to clearly define your sandbox. So, Jin Sakai is written that way. It's okay, here's a lot of setting material. Here's a lot of open-ended plot hooks. Here's a lot of cosmology stuff, and here's a lot of social stuff. And then also, by the way, you're from the real world, in case you forgot. I don't know. I might have to include more notes than that, because I feel like certain people have read the setting, and despite the name... not wholeheartedly embraced the aspect of being from someplace else and dealing with it. And while there certainly could be narratives I could build to and go down, a lot of it's just hey, what are you doing? Where are you going? Because it's a world of... It's a literal world of adventure. And while certainly there will be instances where some people might be hey, don't you guys adventurers? Shouldn't you be doing stuff? Or I joked about this with okay, well, so I know the goddess of justice who kind of was in part of the reason why you guys got reincarnated here is probably gonna sass you if you don't do adventurer things, but I mean she's busy, so she can't be on you all the time to quote unquote do things. There's a lot of open-endedness, so yeah, that's one of the things about sandboxing is you have to define your sandbox, and Jin Sakai is definitely written for that aspect. And that's the intent, because it's supposed to, honestly, and also think about how many of those settings you see. How many of them do the players either immediately derail the fucking plot, the main character just upends it for some reason, or just, they don't do anything. I believe that in the actual, light novels and stuff in Konosuba, it kind of builds towards actually dealing with the Demon King problem, but at least for the parts they've animated,
it seems to deal with it indirectly, which is hilarious.
Yes, it's indirectly bits. We're just we're just minding our own business, trying to keep alive and trying to Kazuma tries to manage his problem children, and then occasionally, when doing stuff so that they can eat and sleep and not die, they occasionally are like, "Oh, hey, that's the general of that thing," or "Ooh, we found a dungeon for that guy." Or
if
whatever,
I remember correctly, they only ran into like the New Holland because fucking Megumin kept blowing up his fucking castle. So he was like, "What the fuck?"
Yes, that was a plot brought out because every day for like several seasons, I think, when they didn't have quests to blow shit up, they, Kazuma would take Megumin out, blow up a castle, and then walk away. Bakuretsu, bakuretsu, la la la, and then that guy shows up at the newbie town and is just like, "Hello, I am General to the Demon King, Dulahan. Who the fuck has been blowing up my house every day? Who's done this? Show them to me. I don't actually care. I'm going to stab you all now. Bye." And then they have to be really clever and fuck his shit up, and it works.
Yeah.
And then the second season, they go through some stuff, and they do actually travel, and they do some arcs, but the final arc, they just happen to bump into a major Demon King guy and do the work to get it, and would have lost if one of their party wasn't literally the goddess Aqua, and they weren't in her town of worship.
Mm-hmm.
And also if Kazuma didn't get eaten by a slime and had to come back from the dead again. Raised Dead's a real son of a gun.
Well, here's the thing, Axe. Konosuba is Gensokai is basically trying to be a bit like Konosuba in the fact that it's basically tongue-in-cheek isekai tropes the entire fucking way.
Yes, Konosuba is a major inspiration, but Konosuba itself is, lampshading and being a parody of other more straightforward in the genre.
Yes.
There's definitely going to be, and I don't know if there'll be less internal suffering or not. Jinsekai is a pastiche. Like, I took a lot of different elements and brought them together, and it's supposed to be a light tone with serious undertones of just like, I don't know. You can get steel in a couple of zones. I think it required. I'd have to look at what the talent did. I did actually plan for this though, but I need to actually look at what the steel talent does, which I wrote. It's in a couple places, but we're starting to wander back into a different territory. We started this talking about different ways you can handle game design, and I was talking with Lucky about how, like, for me, I think there are generally two ways I like to do it. One, I like to actually fully write out an adventure, almost like I'm writing it I write it professionally and not like I'm the only one who's going to see this, just because for me that's way easier to write for than to, like, occasionally occasionally in my notes I will get open-ended and be like, I think I'm just going to see this and be like, hey, dumbass, don't do this, or remember to do this. Mm-hmm. Like, I will write notes to myself in that theme, but generally I write them to be a little open and, like, actually, work on that stuff. So, that's kind of the way that I work with, but that's as close as I get to hard and fast stuff. And even then, I understand, having been doing this for like 10 years and doing a lot of GMing in that time, I understand that, like, the rule of no plan survives contact with the players. So usually what I do is I don't write specific encounters, specific rules. I'm like, okay, you guys have a goal. You're trying to get to the blah 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 place, or you're trying to do this or do that. So here's where you are, and if you want to go from A to B, well, guess what? There's obstacles C and D in the way. Here's what happens if you try to get over these obstacles, whether that's like, you must climb a cliff, you must swim a river, Omega must sneeze. We don't have a lot of disease plots, but that's always because that's usually kind of a... Well, one, that would still probably be a little weird and insensitive to write a pandemic plot right now, but also, like, what do you even do? Is there a good pandemic movie tabletop game? I don't know, probably. There's probably a Fiasco playset for that.
Disaster setting, probably.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, I'll probably put on another...
That's the kind of the hard and fast rule I do, right?
I'll go probably put out another call for Torchlight here. I'll write another blurb. I said I've worked on it, so I'll see again. Wait, actually, let me see here. What are the characters here? We have...
And the other way is to finish my point while Lucky's reading.
Oh yeah, you're made Virginia Smith.
The other way I usually do this is, like I said, the full sandbox way of just like, okay, so here is the setting. It exists. when you do stuff in the setting, and usually I have inciting incidents, but when you do stuff in this setting, things happen, and will continue to happen as you guys solve your own problems. Like, arguably, well, no, I don't know. Bits and bobs of Wild Talents, Metahuman Renaissance it was arguably sandbox. I didn't usually write hard and fast plots out to myself. I wrote characters, I gave characters motivations, I wrote plot hooks down, and then generally you guys interacted with the plot hooks as you would and kind of dissolved your own thing. And in times, you guys would do stuff that I didn't expect, but that was how it was. And other times you would do stuff that I totally expected, but still wasn't happy about, like disintegrate many people. It happens sometimes. And then you kind of gotta wiggle around and just kind of use the comic book trope settings to be like, I know you think you've won, but... Because, there's all those things to work towards. And while there was a meta plot, there was an overarching plot that, because none of that setting was recorded in any format and you'll never hear it other than our stories, there was an A to B line of, like, slowly leading up to the villain's master plan to take over the city. Because it was, the campaign we ran was basically supposed to be just street tier of a 3-tiered system, but we never really got that far. That's okay. We can always come back to that setting. Got lots of notes about MHR. So the purpose was not necessarily that you guys would ever thwart the final stage. And considering you were dealing with a supervillain who was super intelligent, that was quite easy to pull off the idea that, like, nah, you guys could never actually, like, you got pretty close to figuring it out, and you made precautions, but you never quite got to be in a situation where you could actually actively thwart stage 1.
No.
Like, you were able to catch up to everything and stop all this stuff from getting out of hand, but you weren't in such a way that, like, you could easily be like, oh shit, we've stopped them from preparing to do the thing, but you actually thwart them from doing the thing, as it were. Like, I remember a big deal when you guys were, I think you guys were at an airport when the call went up. You guys were working with stuff. I think I just sprung the thing where you guys had temporarily kicked yourselves out of your safe house.
Yeah.
Because what was it, an old fire station, I think is what you guys took over?
Yes.
You took over an old fire station in the projects and revamped it a little bit. And I did a lot of, because that was something that, strictly speaking, Wild Talents doesn't do out of the box, is like, handle like organizations or hard and fast settings. I should probably look into other editions of One World Engine games to look for better rules if I was to do it again. But you guys had just basically been attacked in your base and fled and spread out and were accomplishing goals. And then it was like, okay, you guys are getting reports from your contact network that the thing is happening. People are sending up distress signals. And then it was like, okay, we got to figure out where to go. Where's the center? Oh, it's there. We'll go to the creepy big boss tower. We'll punch out some guys. We'll fight all the remaining villains. Let's go home. Cool. And a lot of showdowny stuff happened.
Mm-hmm.
Got to experiment with a lot of ideas I had. So there's that game overall was sandboxy.
Yes.
Like, I would throw out plot hooks, and sometimes the players didn't touch the plot hooks, and then it's like, okay. And sometimes that meant nothing happened, and sometimes that meant that, not to trigger Axe with the word timer, but I am of the belief that, especially in an interactive game setting, there are certain events that if you don't poke them, if you don't investigate them, they will advance without you, right?
Yeah,
that's part of the dramatic tension.
Yeah, that's one of those things, like, it's in our Star Wars game that's always kind of ticking in the back of my head. Like, every time it's like, all right, what are you guys going to do next? And I'm just like,
Yeah, I don't think I've set that up to be like, and I've said that theoretically plot lines could expire, but in general, as the GM, I like too many of my ideas to have them completely go out of style.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely the order you guys have tackled things in has, when I set up the next block of encounters or story plots, has influenced me to be like, okay, well then this will come up, or that will come up. Like, threads don't necessarily expire, but I have definitely been influenced when actually writing the plot threads, because I have the high level idea. Like, I've actually come up with the next batch beyond Black Garden, and they're gonna be fun. I got a lot of fun ideas.
Oh no.
Some of which are small and compact, and others are, can be bigger scale, do a lot of fun stuff. But I don't actually go to the trouble of writing out the whole adventure until it's like, okay, you guys have picked what you're doing next, I will write it now. Because, especially when we're doing it twice a week, but in general, just the idea of, like, okay, we need to run down the thing, I only need to know ahead of time,
Yes.
what you want to do next, because, like this conversation started with Bear feeling kind of overwhelmed. If I tried to write literally all the plot threads I had in mind ahead of time, fuck, I'd never have any time to do anything else.
Yeah.
No spoilers, but let me pull up, and even then, Black Garden's not technically complete. I have to write all the adversary stats. But it is about 6 pages of content.
Neat.
Now, obviously, that's all broken up into paragraphs and stuff, some of which are shorter than others, and 6 pages of notes can flow fast or can flow slow. That's the whole understanding the thing about, surviving content with your players. Guess what? You're going to visit a town in the start of this, which I know means that you guys will possibly spend maybe literal hours of real time talking to people, looking into stories, and buying things. Mm-hmm. So I understand that this may actually flow into several parts, or it might not. And then there's other parts I'm like, okay, there's going to be probably a big fight here. I know from experience that means this will go on a while. We've done several sessions where big boss fights have been a majority chunk of the setup, just through the way it is. And talking about homebrewing stuff earlier, like, I am always one of those people that, like, the rule zero is that it's not literally true, but I phrase it as the GM is always right? Like we said, the GM is doing the heavy lifting, so the players, you have to kind of trust your GM to actually do all the connecty bits and do all the stuff. And if you can't trust your GM to do that, well, maybe you should have conversations about some things and work some stuff out. And, there are some GMs whose style is very much more like a storyteller and arbiter, especially if you have a lot of practice running, like, prefab modules, which I've hit or missed on. Like, sometimes I look at modules and I like them, and other times I'm like, I can drift it. And the best parts are when you can take a module and actually, like, expand them to fit your current storyline. In our big Star Wars campaign, that was kind of all the elements, we did a decent amount of mixing in prefab modules that I liked the story of, and then just original shit. Like, you guys actually did several of the Age of Rebellion campaigns that I liked, but also sometimes those were railroady, and I was like, fuck it, you still got out of it, it's fine. We'll just restructure things slightly. Because, a lot of times they have that stuff written where it's, okay, well, this has to happen. And guess what? Players are bad at that. Players are bad at things that have to happen. If you give a player a gun and then you write in the plot, the player must pull the trigger, that doesn't work.
No.
Because sometimes players don't want to pull the trigger. Or sometimes a player will think that there's a trap and they'll get rid of the gun. Or they'll argue for 3 minutes about which one of them should pull the trigger, because technically a lot of story writing is usually written on one or two central characters, but RPGs are almost always inherently more ensemble cast.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's different. Like, the way we set up the Star Wars campaign we keep going back to, because it's our current running campaign for us.
Yes.
Like Lucky said earlier, Arama is kind of the face leader character. She's the most senior in a military organization, though obviously being a Jedi, you often don't feel or act necessarily like a military leader.
Nope.
Which is okay, because that builds up some of the drama, but you're still usually the highest ranking quote-unquote officer, and while there are NPCs who outrank you for purposes of, seniority or organizing, just because sometimes you need somebody to get that stuff moving along. Mm-hmm. And occasionally you do need people to tell the PCs what to do. Mm-hmm. That's a great driving force when some other guy is like, hey, I need you guys to go here and do this. Okay, thanks, bye.
Bye.
But that means that in a lot of, especially in downtime or setup scenes, I feel like Arama gets a lot of attention, but that's because you are playing the character who has to make a lot of these decisions in character. And out of character, you make sure to, and also in character most of the time, but out of character for sure, you make sure to check in with all the other players and make sure that their opinions and value are kind of heard and understood, right? Mm-hmm. Like, make sure that the players don't feel bad about what we're going about, because that's kind of, as another singular player, that can be kind of shitty if you just grab the plot by the reins and be like, hello, I'm the hero of this story now. Fuck the rest of you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Like, you're playing an ensemble cast, all the players are usually just of equal narrative weight as anybody else. And sometimes players build characters that more take a front or a backseat. Like I think Loth has said that he built Boots to be kind of a backseater supporting character, and that's worked out for him. Even though that Boots, because Loth is very talky, gets into a lot of stuff. At times, I feel like Axe likes to portray Camo as like a background character, but Camo is also very proactive, especially when combat comes in. So there are times when Camo does a lot of dynamic actiony stuff, and sometimes he gets booped back on the snoot like he's the main hero character because he's the one doing all the shooting and doing all the damage. And only sometimes do I feel bad about this. Other times we have long conversations about aggro. It's like, okay, Arma as a character has gotten to the point where for a lot of fights she doesn't even draw her goddamn lightsaber, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you used to get shot a lot because you were the very clear leader with a big glowy sword. So this means that the characters who have big glowy swords or have huge guns that they shoot a lot are like, no, it makes sense. You're drawing all the attention. You're the one who gets shot. Sorry. Sorry, but sometimes not sorry. You know, so there's a lot of interesting stuff. And as an ARC Trooper commando, like, Camo has all the narrative hallmarks of fitting into kind of a secondary leading role. Like, he is the character who can be more independent and do stuff and kind of have a lot of thoughts and feelings on the war and on character dynamics. Oh, that's a hilarious art I'm going to retweet. Anyway. So that's kind of like how ensemble stuff works. And, you know, there's a lot of this writing with hard and fast adventures where you need to think about this stuff. And some people will, when they run modules or when they write modules especially, will sometimes they'll write it like they're writing a single-ended story. They can sometimes forget that it's got players though who have free will. You know, it's and some writers talk about this when writing stories where they're just like, that's just what the character would do, right? Mm-hmm. That's a sign that you as a writer have a good grasp on your characters and you understand their arcs and their personalities very well. The character doesn't literally write their own story. That's just a turn of phrase. With role-playing games, your characters can actually write their own stories sometimes because they are active agents who get to do stuff because they're run by real people.
Force of nature.
You gotta be aware of that when writing, and I've definitely had that thought when reading prefab adventures, or even thinking about stuff. Like, I know Lucky may want to talk about Torchlight characters or his Torchlight setup some more.
Nah, not really.
So I don't know if I want to. Okay, then I can tell some stuff about D&D playing this week. Because it got me thinking thoughts. Like Vesper started this conversation we did about adjusting the game by saying that they felt bad about GMing and they felt like they couldn't get stuff together. And I was like, well, I don't think you suck. Sometimes we have discussions back and forth, and there are sometimes when I got a little, like last session, I got a little tense about stuff, but I think that's just because of the way D&D is designed sometimes, and it reminds me that, man, we talked about this a lot on Let's Talk FGO, actually, because, like, sometimes D&D is actually very specifically written in a lot of points, and it can get weird, like, if you think about it too hard. Like, I'm still convinced that the people who make D&D don't actually understand how time works. And how things, because like, okay, action rounds are 6 seconds, but people, if you don't know, a long rest is 8 hours, and a short rest is supposed to be an hour. Because we had to take our first short rest ever in the campaign last session, and I was like, an hour? Like, I'm not mad at you, GM, for that. I'm just like, who the fuck is writing this? Realistically, where can you camp out for an hour to catch your breath? Like, that's a little crazy. Mm-hmm. Like, I believe Vesper said that most people make it more like half an hour, but still, I'm like, that can be, depending on your setting, that can be a little nonsensical, but man, that's actually, taking rest is actually really important because 10 minutes as a baseline it works out a lot better. Like, for some characters that might feel weird, but, hit points are a weird mechanic anyway. They're a huge abstraction. So, like, yeah, 10 minutes sounds a lot better of like, okay, now we need to take a break. And then a long rest at 8 hours is just, okay, you rest. Like, I think, because, second edition Eclipse Phase actually moved to this rules, and I feel like the short break is much more like that 5 to 10 minutes range, if I remember right.
Oh, yeah.
With a long recharge actually being the 4 to 8 hours kind of thing, depending on your metabolism and stuff. And the reason why this is interesting to me is because, gross. What is wrong with these people? Axe just posted a comment where he's like, there's variant rules where a short rest is a long rest and a long rest is a week. I'm like, what the fuck? Why do people hate fun and hate doing things? This is the thing we've talked about. It's important to do stuff, Making it so that it's very funny. Devil's just posted the image of Dungeons and Diners and Dragons and Dive-Ins and Dives, which is a great joke. But like, God, no, I am a caster. I hate it. I'm a half caster, so I already can only do like. I'm a level 3 paladin. I literally get 3 spell slots per long rest, and to use my smite, I have to use those spell slots. So I can do 3 things, and then I'm done for the day. Right? Put that in perspective. As a character, I am out of things to do for a day if I use my spell slots. Now, I have some other attributes, but most of which are long rest based. So, like, debatable. Especially that last part, because we're level 3, I still only have 22 hit points. Which, to me, feels bad, because I am barely less squishy than our squishy characters, and I have a D10 hit dice. But that's because, as people who follows the AP know, that means Omega has to roll dice when they matter, which is very chaotic. Whenever I feel like I want to roll large, usually I roll poorly, and then whenever I'm like, this is fine, whatever, then that's when I roll, like, 6 successes, and I'm like, oh, well, I appear to have accidentally killed you. You're dead. Whoops. Oops. My primary factor is the fact that because I can wear good armor, I have decent AC, but even then, that's still complex. That complicates other things, like not being able to sneak for shit. I think I literally rolled a stealth check later with disadvantage, and it was like, okay, so normally these 2 dice came up an 18, which even at my like +1 dex is like 19, or a 3. So because I'm wearing heavy armor, I guess we're going with that 4 total I've rolled, GM. Let's have fun. So yeah, there's D&D has some interesting ideas about when you should do stuff, and I'm like, okay, I understand this is probably balanced to like doing D&D things, but if you think about it too hard for a second, you're like, wow. God, this is very specific, and like literally you want to start camping. Like you camp in dungeons, and I'm like, okay, I understand this is the caveat, but if you think about this too hard, that's fucking weird. I've also realized that like 5e especially is a game where, like, Lucky, see if you follow me on this analogy, right?
I'm listening.
D&D is a game that it feels like is not one where typically you get better at stuff, you get more stuff you can do.
Yeah.
There are classes which do tend to get better. Like I think like a lot of the skill monkey type classes specifically start getting expertise and get other trainings at different levels to do different stuff. But generally you don't get better at a regular standpoint. Like you only get ability score increases like every 4 levels. Your proficiency bonus doesn't go up by 1, mind you, until level 5. No, I don't. That's the thing, Axe. I don't think that's necessarily true. When I went from level 2 to 3 as a paladin, I got a new bucket of class features because I could take my oath. I got an extra spell per day, which isn't better. It's just more stuff I can do. I can do my thing more, and I got immune to disease. That's okay. I mean, it might actually come up. I don't know. And what was the other thing? What did I get? And I got the only thing I have that literally scales with level is probably my most reliable and useful class feature is Lay on Hands. Every time we level, I get 5 more points of that. And that thing, Axe, you mentioned about 6 and up getting better stuff, that really depends on your class, though. Like, generally, as a paladin, while admittedly as a martial fighter type class, I do get an extra attack at level 5, which some people don't get. I get my bonus attacks starting then. There's definitely a sweet spot to class and level-based systems. But in general, it's like very few levels do you actually outright get better at the things you do, or have an opportunity to get better at the things you do. Like, at level 4, I'm going to take an ability score increase, and I'm going to increase some things so that hopefully I suck less at certain roles. Most definitely, I'm taking con because I'm like 1 point away from having +2 con, and man, I need those sweet, sweet free hit points. Oof.
Hit points.
And I need to hopefully get better. I'm definitely doing the double score increase. I need that so much. I have a +1 in initiative and a +1 con, so it's like, no, I need more hit points, and I need to be able to actually go in combat, because when I run out of spell slots and when I run out of Lay on Hands, the only thing I could do is hit things, and if I can't hit things fast, that's bad, because we have a lot of casters and squishies in our party. They cannot take blows. Even though in our player group, Robin is playing the player character who gets the aggro, other than maybe Dallas's Barbarian Thraxius, who definitely can hit things, but I feel like because Karina the Catgirl Sorcerer has the most you're very talky, Robin, and you're very active. Like, the way you play Karina is she'll just do stuff. You're playing that character, which sometimes can be annoying, but generally is good because somebody has to do things. We can't argue over a closed door for forever. And we did not argue over a closed door, and man, did it bite us. Our rogue player was a little distracted by real life stuff and had to pop off for a second, so that left us facing a door without our trap checker. And we opened a door that had a Root of Thunderwave on it, and man, that clapped a lot of us pretty hard because that was a con save. Which is, and this is the thing though that I talk about, like, and Vesper explained this to me, but man, it can still suck sometimes. The way it works is they give you proficiency in 2 saving throws, for those of you who don't know. So as a paladin, mine are Wisdom and Charisma. Charisma will never ever come up. I have a great score in it though, because Charisma is my high stat. I have like a 5 in my Charisma save, and I have like 3 total in my Wisdom, I think, which is decent. And it'll get better over time as my proficiency bonus goes up. I think we've had to make a couple of Wisdom saves. I may have fucked those up because those might have been a disadvantage though. But like traps and stuff, those are usually con or dex saves, so that's also why I need some more points in those because that's the thing. I've mentioned this. I don't have a lot of hit points. If I start taking trap damage, my ability to tank is going to whittle down very bad.
This is one of the reasons why I've leaned away a lot from D&D as a system. Is because I just find their level up system way too rigid and strict. I'm just all like,
it has its purpose, but you have to, and Vesper knows the system very well in his homebrewing. Like, Vesper was like, looked at some bonus stuff and was like, yeah, they've decided Halfcaster can take cantrips, Paladin, you can take some cantrips. I got some cantrips, which means I have a couple spells which I can use all the time. That's great. I love being able to do things all the time.
Yeah.
Though one of them is a save or suck spell, so... Sacred Flame, if they save it completely, which I think literally everybody has. That's just probably my bad for targeting enemies who can make dex saves. Guidance just works, though.
D&D is a system where you don't get things outside your level up. You really don't.
No, you can get magic items, but then your GM has to pick those, and they have to be very careful, because sometimes magic items can fuck shit up, too.
Yeah. That's why I prefer games like, like Shadowrun, Eclipse Phase, things that usually use point buy systems, because then you can generally build towards what you want to do, and if it's not what you want, then you can just turn on a dime and just go start working on something else, and maybe not lose too much momentum. Yeah,
because Star Wars and the way Gensekai is built to emulate that are both arguably class systems, right?
Oh, yeah.
But those are things that would you agree, you feel like you get better at stuff. It's not just that you get new stuff, because you can buy talents or you can buy brand new skills outright and just get new stuff, but you can totally just be like, yeah, no, I just want to spend my experience points to buy that 3 in charm.
Oh yeah, you can buy charms, even with the talents and trees and stuff, things are usually ranked, so you'll get, sometimes you can either be good at a whole bunch of things, or you can get really good at one thing. For example, dodge, it's ranked, I can, the more ranks in dodge I get, there's not an actual cap, I can just keep picking up ranks of dodge until eternity, and just give everything fucking red dice to fucking hit me. That's great, and then it has, improved dodge, lets me make moves, it's it has a lot, there's a lot of different things you can do. A lot of talents have, upgraded and supreme versions of it, there's a lot of talents that just stack on it. Regardless,
and then there's a lot of talents which just exist to make you better. They just exist to remove penalty dice or give you bonuses on certain checks, and just oh hey, when you do this specific thing, you're cooler. You do better.
Yeah. Here, spin 2 strain, do more damage. Spin 2 strain, take less damage.
And even those which aren't necessarily abilities which don't necessarily do that directly, if they say require a skill check or something, then or there are some abilities which are based on what your score in a stat or skill is. Hey, guess what? If you buy up that stat or skill, you improve that talent. You can choose to get better at the talent too.
Yeah, when you play D&D, once you pick a fighter, you're pretty much stuck as a fighter. You can't. It's very hard for you to be a fighter and something else.
Well, you can multi-class, but that means you're splitting your focus, and depending on the game you're running, that can be very weird. Something I have noticed, and Robin actually talked about it earlier. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because of how they worked out how to actually balance the level curve, because that's a whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think 5e does have a lot of solid points. And it really does try to, other than the inherent caveat of you're playing D&D, it generally tries to get out of your way. Like, it's very open-ended in how stuff works. It's just like, hey, okay, here's our mechanical model for what this does. And there's a lot of subclasses, and they're working through stuff through, like, homebrew, like, accepting homebrews or beta testing other stuff. Like a lot of people have told me that Ranger is just not great out of the box, but there have been improvements that make it actually playable. And this is the thing I said. I actually think it's quite funny that Vesper said, if you're listening, I actually was a little shocked when you said you had trouble homebrewing, like, the setting stuff, because Vesper does a lot of house ruling on the fly to understand and make things better at stuff, like giving me cantrips as a paladin, because, hey, otherwise I can literally only cast 3 spells a day, and that's also, for some ungodly reason, that's also my smite stockpile. So, it expends my resources very rapidly to do things that my character does, and then I have to take a nap for 8. Well, I'm an elf, so I only have to take a nap for 4 hours, and I don't actually take a nap because trance is dumb. But still, I have to take a break then, a long break, where arguably I can't do other stuff. But yeah, it's limited because it's my smite pile. Well, and in general, half-casters don't seem to get a lot of juice. That's just what I've noticed. But Vesper understands a lot of the underlying mechanics of D&D very well, and is like, oh yeah, I've rewritten sorcerers because otherwise they kind of suck. Like, they had very narrow spell lists and stuff. Or acknowledging that, like, warlocks are weird and probably need some editing, so they aren't just, well, you're just using Eldritch Blast all the time.
I love using Eldritch Blast all the time. It's great.
I mean, that's fun, but it's also very repetitive. It's interesting that they have that option to do, and I would probably like to look at Warlock, because Warlock was a character type in 4E that was really interesting to me, with all the different pacts and stuff. A lot of different options. I'd love to explore it sometime. If I definitely make a second character, I'm definitely either going to make a full-blown spellcaster so I have more spells, or I'm going to make a character that gets more skills and do more stuff. I don't know yet. That's just my future opinions playing D&D for, like, several hours so far overall, 5e specifically. But it's interesting to see what they limit and where, and kind of the curves and stuff, and sometimes it's a little restrictive. I can do that. That sounds fun, but that's because I love that stuff. I remember when Hexblade was a separate class feature thing. But, you know, there are hard limits to what I can do, and if I run out of spell slots, then I just hit people. So it's cool, actually, that Warlocks have Eldritch Blast to fall back on, and that generally spellcasters have cantrips, and I'm like, I guess because I've seen that our rogue does a cunning action to do, like, they get special action economy they can do with their bonus actions all the time, I guess. I don't know what fighters do. Do they get bonus actions or something? But I feel like 5e has kind of cottoned onto the idea. I guess.
Is that actually doing anything?
Yeah, I was about to say, that kind of sounds like that means that as a fighter, you don't do stuff. Like,
you just hit things.
You just hit things with things. Which, that's a perfectly legit style, but that definitely can feel like, oh, well, okay, I guess. Yeah, that's, I don't know. That's talking about fundamental D&D limits. Axe is saying they do a lot of numbers, and I'm like, okay, numbers are important. I've definitely felt like I'm not doing a lot of numbers, but at the same time, that's not necessarily doing a thing, right?
So you just want to be a mindless murder hobo? Question mark?
And I don't know. I'd love to explore fighters and see if because I bet there's some fun that can be had there, but definitely it feels like, as a mechanical unit, the thing you do is, okay, you've picked the weapon that's best suited for whatever your build is, and you just hit people.
I wouldn't say D&D is 80% combat. I'd say people make it 80% combat.
Well, I think Axe is saying that in his experience with 5e, a lot of the way the rules are built is like 80% combat support. And I could probably see that. I haven't seen other stuff. I do know that Vesper has some supplements. Like, Vesper picked up a book about hirelings and strongholds lately, and that probably has a lot of fun, interesting things that are not necessarily combat related. But that could be true for rules about, like, and honestly, combat is the thing in D&D that is the most finicky. Like, there are out-of-combat spells that can apply to stuff, but in general, it's the mechanically finicky bits is how you interact with hitting things, because you are here to fight strange creatures and explore strange locales. Whereas, say, with, like, Star Wars and Genesis, that's much more open-ended. Combat is a whole section, but there's a lot of other stuff in there, too. There are rules for, like, handling your vehicles, there are rules for other stuff. I'm Right now I'm working on what I called the prestige or the bonus classes, but if I was going to do another mechanical bit next, I'd work on the additional rules I would have for Gensakai, which would involve crafting, building structures and strongholds, and I think I want to I think because it fits the feeling, I want to include explicit rules for terrain. Like actually have a section that lists like, okay, you're in a desert. That means you get a setback dice to your survival checks and resilience checks because it's hot and dry. Or, hey, forest tiles automatically give everybody stacking levels of concealment based on how dense the forest is. Stuff like that. Stuff that is implied by the general rules, but is not laid out in a format of like, hey, what type of terrain are you standing on kind of thing. Just because I think that would help the feeling and also collect a lot of different rules that would work for this setting. Because contextually, then you could be like, hey, GM, what happens if I try to change this terrain type? You know? Or what happens if we fight creatures not on their good terrain type? Stuff like that. And I don't know, I'm not committed to the thing. Yeah, no, you could. They're a little sketchy and some people aren't 100% on them, and arguably they are like fighting, but there are social combat rules, which are just like talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's an interesting prospect to look at, and like I said, I kind of came to that realization on my own because I was like, wow, I can only do like 4 things, and when I can't do those things good, I kind of feel bad. And that's not, like I said, I don't want to say that's the fault of like the DM or anything. That's just like, no, I'm playing D&D right now. I have 4 skills trained, and I don't think we've ever been called to roll athletics or persuade. Well, actually, I think some of the characters rolled persuasion. But usually if we have a good excuse, we just roll with it. So there's a lot of stuff where I'm just like, yeah, I guess I just don't do anything here. Oh well. All right, we've been talking for about an hour, so we should probably move on to other stuff, and I need to go get some water, so... yeah, unless Lucky has something to vamp about, I think I'll pause it here for a second.
Yeah, you can go. You can pause it. Well, actually, I was looking at it, slings are actually, if you get good with a sling will fucking kill a man. You can't actually hunt with them, it's kind of wild.
I mean, it's human's original weapon, by the way, we're unpaused.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about stuff, but yeah, slings. Cause, well, that kind of, to talk about Gensakai stuff a little bit, that kind of did come up because we had some hypothetical players discussing some build stuff and asking about the economy, and like some people asked like, why is some stuff so expensive? And I'm just like, it's just like, that's just how it is. These things are like, most of these price ranges are for stuff that's not OG, like original content. That's all straight out of the books in one form or another. So this is what the people making the game think the base level for a lot of this stuff is, and it kind of makes sense because like a lot of people are like, oh golly, gee willikers, a bow is really expensive. It's 450 GP. Although I will say, hold on. If I Google compound bow, that sounds about right. That's how many. That's somewhere in the range of how much dollars buying a bow right now would get you. Yeah, because of the rules. But also the thing to think about is the stat line. A bow has the same damage and range as a heavy blaster pistol in Star Wars, and it's got a couple of hard points, so you can add more to that. Like bows are actually pretty high-quality weapons. Like, they will be once you actually can acquire one, they will be standard issue, but it's hard for basic player characters to actually get them. That's a thing that... Also, yes, Axe, armies are expensive. Have you not read my fucking setting? How dare you? Don't even talk to me anymore. Don't ask me questions until you've read the research. Don't even at me. But also, yes, that's why professional armies are fucking expensive. Armor and weapons and training are really expensive. It's fine, but I'm... Hold on. I have my copy of Peace Talks handy, because I still don't have a place to put it yet. I haven't figured out. Let's see. It's 340 pages long. So that's a novel length. Gensakai is currently only 199 pages long, and... a lot of that is mechanicals and tables and lists and stuff. The fluff is much shorter than that. It starts on page 127 of 199. Yes, Devil, Peace Talk has been out since the beginning of this week, and we're going to talk about it. We'll talk a little bit about it later. That's why I pre-ordered. But yeah, so the stat line for stuff is actually based on what the tables are for things in the books, and are probably relatively balanced to actual mechanical requirements of what you get, right? Like, like a basic sword is 200, rarity 2, for a +3 weapon, which, assuming you have pretty basic like if you're a normal Brink Brawn, that's like 5 or 6 damage with a defensive one. Though I'm not sure how I feel about this. I'll have to playtest it. But for some reason in the fantasy supplements, they give a lot of bladed weapons crit too, and I'm just like, that could be bad. That could be bad. We'll have to see.
Cut you.
On the other hand, I could also see that, like, okay, no, that does make sense because you have to get up close and personal with them. So, but comparatively, a bow is 7 damage flat with more hard points and better, and is 454. And so, yeah, no, like. And it has range, too. It's got medium range. It's not just engaged, so you can shoot from quite a far away. So I think there's a lot of stuff. The cheap option is the sling, because that is actually quite low damage, low crit. Does have Prepare 1, because you gotta load it, but it has no encumbrance and no hard points, but it's cheap. You can find a sling. It's not hard.
How much is the sling?
It's 20.
It ain't bad. Lucky's still not gonna do it, and he's all like, I'm gonna go make me a fucking sling. It's literally a piece of clock with a rope tied to both.
Yeah, no, like, I have not yet built the crafting tables, but expect that simple weapons, like simple clubs, basic throwing weapons or stuff like that, will probably be pretty easy, and almost assuredly will also be able to be done with a survival check.
Yeah.
In addition to mechanics. Like, mechanics is gonna be like forging a sword or an axe. And there'll be some different options. And again, I don't know 100% how I'm going to work it. I got to like look at tables and stuff.
But shoot, where were we going with this?
Well, we were about to transition to other stuff, but it was just it came up to in Gensakai because we're talking about the economy and like, no, that's how it is. Quarterstaff's pretty cheap too. It's like 40.
Oh yeah, that's right. Dallas wanted a gun, and I was like.
And honestly, as an outsider, as a reincarnated person, that can make sense to be like, but I want a gun though. But then you have to deal with the fact that in this setting, guns are, especially handguns, are kind of a newfangled technology that's not fully reliable. Like, actual gunsmithing takes a lot of effort and work. There's a reason why it took us a long time to switch to firearms, and honestly, there's a lot of explosive development of firearms, but also a lot of stagnance. I don't think there's been a real breakthrough in firearm technology in a lot of years that's not just a gimmick. Like, there are some interesting magazine designs and there's some interesting recoil compensation designs, but fundamentally, we haven't really changed the face of firearms since we figured out how to make a gun automatic that you could carry. So, it's a slow process, so getting a hand cannon is like, okay, it's pretty cool, but also, I mean, it's a gun. In a setting where and adventuring's supposed to be a decently profitable pastime. Mm-hmm. So, like, probably after 1 or 2 quests, you can, like, afford a bow, a gun, assuming you don't start with a bow, because some characters do. I also liked how Dallas said, I've apparently made a ranged fighter. I'm just like, have you now? Have you really? That should be you. You made a ranged fighter, by design, in a class that's not necessarily starting with kit for a ranged fighter. I don't know, buy throwing axes or throwing knives. They're cheap. They actually have encumbrance, though, but that's part of the balance. Because you can also just hit people with them.
One of my goals is just to get a throwing axe that returns to my hand. Lucky has a big old list of magic items he wants.
And I made a very big magic item and artifact list, which I might need to split into magic items and then artifacts, but I don't know yet. And I add more because they come to me because they're funny.
Mm-hmm. I am super, super wanting that walk.
The Mystic Walk is pretty cool. Well, it's because you decided to make a character about cooking, and then, to mention another thing, I speaking of books I completely forgot came out, I was shocked, even though it was quarantine, and I don't remember any announcement about it, but the Keyforge setting, which if you don't know, Keyforge is an interesting game designed by Fantasy Flight. It was originally designed by the same guy who designed Magic.
Mm-hmm.
It is a collectible deck game. You do not buy individual booster packs, you buy a whole deck, which is procedurally generated, so it will be functional. Some of them are probably more rare or more easy to get the hand of than others. Like, some will have, like, finicky strategies and win conditions. But they're procedurally generated, got some interesting stuff, so you buy a whole deck, and it's all kind of, like, random permutations on themes. And so the setting is very chaotic and kitchen sink, and overall what they call the book is it's a guide to science fantasy, right? It's a guide about mixing things where you can get, like, golems and wizards and goblins and giants fighting fucking Martians and robots and cyborgs and psychics and stuff. All of which, by the way, I think most of those were archetypes that are actually in the game setting. Real neat. And actually, one of the things that immediately got me was that they reprinted these. They created an archetype called Robot, which is basically reprinting the droid stats, but slightly different. So I was like, okay, well, I guess that functions in Gensekai. I'll just port that over. So I added a new archetype for Construct. It's if you want to be even more min-maxy than Beastman. Arguably playing Beastman, which a lot of people are doing, it seems like, or a lot of people want to do, I should say, since we're not actually playing any games yet. But a lot of people want to play Beastman, but it's because they have they have a decent amount of EXP flexibility and they have a lot of cool bonus features.
Oh, look, he's over here, but it's all like, I'm gonna be a pig!
Yeah, you're gonna play a pork. Who are my orc stand-in? And we got some other stuff, but it's interesting that a lot of people showed interest in playing adorable animal people. Who could guess? But Construct is even more, because it's basically the droid stat line from Star Wars. You get a bunch of extra EXP, though not as much as I believe droids get, probably because they figured that out better. But all of your starting stats start at 1. You get extra career skills.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to eat, sleep, or breathe, and are immune to poisons and toxins. That's pretty good. Jeez. You get +1 soak. But you don't heal normally, so you can heal by resting, but people can't heal you with medicine checks or health potions. They have to actually use mechanics to fix you. Or use... Because there are vehicles and structures in this, so I decided to add an equivalent of the repair patch magic cement, so that you can just slap it on there. But it's a very open-ended, flexible archetype build. But the Keyforge book actually had a lot of interesting new talents.
Oh yeah, I saw a couple of those.
Builds and stuff, some of which I immediately was like, okay, well, I gotta introduce those. And including one, you made a character who you thought, oh, Port will be interested in cooking and stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, I can work with that. And then immediately I was like, oh shit, this book actually came out. Let me get that PDF. And then it was like, oh heck, there are literally talents about cooking in here.
Oh yeah.
Which was a question I think Axe was like, ooh, do you want to like get a cooking spec, Lucky? And Lucky was like, you were like, I don't know if I'd go that far. But now I'm like, okay, well, they've got clearly defined talents, so I should work out what they can fit into, at least.
I said, like, I bet you said, like, I'm already traveling the ship. I don't need to actually, like, pick a full spec for it.
No,
like that's one of
but
the
I think
things
I can find specializations where some of those talents, and even possibly a couple of specializations where those talents can fit.
Yeah.
Because they have interesting ramifications.
Yeah,
and they had a lot of other good talents I've added. Like, in the bonus Prestige classes, one of the ones I did was Dark Knight, which is... kind of the Final Fantasy Dark Knight type of, like, you're not necessarily a bad guy, but you have learned to tap into your inner darker emotions and do freaky stuff.
The negative.
So they have 3 ranks of the Fearsome talent, which means you basically get a fear rating. I repurposed a talent and increased the tier that was in the Keyforge one to make Soul Eater. So if you knock out an enemy, you can recover strain. And some other spooky, scary abilities. And that fit perfectly. I was able to repurpose some of the new abilities about chases or about handling animals or speed into a Lancer build, which is done, actually. I don't know if I mentioned that.
I know you got a couple of them done. I didn't know how many you got done.
I've got all the fighter ones done. I sketched out Lancer. I just don't remember if I told that to the general community. Which is even more so than a couple of other builds. Lancer is very much a heavy melee weapons like polearms and a riding class. Like, which is why it's so that my general rule for the quote unquote prestige classes for the bonus classes is like, depending on your campaign, these should probably not be your first specialization.
Yeah.
Because they are very finicky, either narratively or in terms of, like, mechanics and rules. Like, the gunner class has a lot of skills and talents for using vehicle weapons, and you may not have access to a vehicle weapon or siege weapons for a long time in your campaign, so it might not matter. Same with Lancer. You might not have good access to mounted combat, or might not be doing a game where mounted combat makes sense, so if you aren't, don't pick this first, but if you're gonna do it, it will definitely help you out along that line. With, stuff like Let's Ride, Need for Speed, Born in the Saddle. I added the Spur talent from Star Wars back into Gensekai here, so you can make your mounts go faster. It's got a fun pole vault talent. Got some fun options in there. And that'll be kind of be the theme for a lot of this stuff, where it's like, okay, maybe this doesn't work as your first thing. But there's a lot of stuff it could do. I feel like I started this conversation somewhere and I've lost it again.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
I was
that's
talking about
happened a couple
Keyforge.
times.
Yeah, so that was you talked about the Mystic Walk, and like because you decided to make a cooking-based character, I was like, okay, I'll think of some fun cooking-based items. Like
I
there's
remember
a
you
magic
immediately
cauldron.
added a cookery set, though, too.
Yeah, right away I was like, well, I can add because the gear list is not set in stone right now, and I've even added a couple things since then. Some of which are inspired directly by stuff like reading Keyforge, like construction tools, because they had a like constructing kit or something in there, and I was like, oh yeah, nope, that definitely works for this. I definitely know I'm adding those rules later. And other stuff is just like, coming up with a mechanical thing. Like I added the magic cement because I was like, oh shoot, I'm adding basically robots to this setting. I should make sure they have the healing option because the healing item doesn't work on them. Kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I immediately threw in the cooking set, which is based on a couple of different... There are a couple of different items to cook things in Star Wars that I borrowed rules from. And I eventually thought of, well, I'll think of some fun magic items that work for this. So there's the Cauldron of Afros, which is like a magic cauldron.
Mm-hmm.
Which never... If you can use it, it always makes enough food to satisfy everybody. That's a really more of a narrative thing, but it's cool. And then there was the Mystic Walk, which is actually statted like a weapon. And yes, that is a Yu-Gi-Oh! Reference. There is actually a card called Mystic Walk. And it's got some interesting stats. It's a little expensive, but it's not priceless, so there's that. It's a melee light weapon that's +2, crit 4. It's got Burn 2, Cumbersome 3, Disorient 3, Inaccurate 2, Defensive 1, Deflection 1, Knockdown Reinforced. Because it's a magic self-heating non-stick pan.
Yep.
That's designed to be fireproof and corrosion-proof. It has the magic effect that using its alchemical enchantments, it can cook anything. Monster guts, sawdust, whatever. You can cook it. It won't taste great, but it's edible. And also, it's a slightly oversized skillet that you can hit people with. And that's why it's got defensive and deflection, because it's funny that you can use a... I believe that was that a PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds thing? You could get a fry pan that went on your back and could deflect a bullet. I think that's what that's from. That or Fortnite or something. One of those types of games. But it's like...
It was PUBG.
Okay. Yeah, so that is a little like reference of like, oh yeah, because that's talking about meta references. The people who are reincarnated from something resembling our real life would definitely think of dumb stuff like, wait, can I use this skillet to deflect attacks? So yes, you get that kind of stuff. And I'm always open to more stuff. Like some stuff I was inspired by some things in the new book. So like I added a skeleton key to be a magic key to open stuff. Other stuff I've just, when I write fluff, I think of stuff like I wrote the description of the River of Fire. I still can't say that off the top of my tongue either. I'm not looking at it right now. It's got some extra vowels in there. But then it was like, oh, according to some lore, the river water didn't actually hurt. Well, it hurts, but it heals you at the same time. Like, supposedly demons would pour it down your throat so that you could heal from all your injuries so they could beat you up again. So I was like, I can make this a magic item. So I, just because I wrote that description of the river, I was like, okay, now it's a magic item. Waters of Hell. Boiling red water, blah, blah, blah. If you consume it, you can suffer any number of strain up to your strain threshold to heal an equal amount of wounds and can heal critical injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And you could also throw it at people to do stun damage. But, like, that's an interesting, like, give and take fun mechanical thing to be like, okay, I'll take some strain.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different, like, magic weapons and stuff. And this is where we get a lot of the meta references. Like, you get a crystal ball, which arguably has a lot of similarity to, like, a computer or a security camera. One of my favorite is still the Arcane Slate. I've talked about it before. It's basically outsiders are trying to make cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
There's a magical item called Sneakers, which is, yes, an outsider alchemist tried to basically replicate modern running shoes. Soft leather, alchemical rubber. They're comfortable and designed to be worn while running, and they also make you stealthy because they're sneakers. So while you wear sneakers, you upgrade your athletics checks to run and jump once, and your stealth checks once, and creatures beyond short range can't hear your footsteps. Because some guy was like, man, literally some guy was like, man, I fucking miss, you know what I miss? I miss tennis shoes. I'm going to make some tennis shoes. But because we are in this weird setting, if you kit match that stuff together, sometimes weird shit happens. Because there's probably not a purely non-magical source of rubber.
That's true.
Like, if there is, it's probably pretty exotic, so you can make a rubber-like substance, but it probably requires alchemy to change the rules of a thing. Whenever I say rules like that, it's a capital R.
Rules. the rules.
And there will probably be even more. Like I said, gear and magic stuff is not yet fixed in place. It's still open-ended. I just had to, work out with the basics of stuff. So there is a lot of basic things like 10-foot pole, lanterns, torches, thieves' tools, healing kits, alchemy kits, stuff like that. I made sure to include, because that's always one of those things that I'm like, no, that's actually important. People actually care about this stuff. Like, there's descriptions of the dungeon rations. What does this actually mean when you pick it up? There's empty flasks. There's the mess kit, which is the first thing I added, actually. I talked about the cookery kit, and I was like, okay, I'm also going to add a mess kit. I know it's a very D&D thing, but it's just simple, and I added it to all standard traveling gear kits, because it's easier. Because that's a pretty decent thing to have. But I made sure that, because it's an important fluff detail, there are descriptions and prices and actual mechanics sometimes for, buying a case of alcohol. If you have a kegger of Lemurian ale, and you share it all after a round, you can heal a little bit extra strain.
Important.
And there's also just, again, it's a dumb isekai setting thing. So there's pipe weed, so you can smoke some of that dank weed, bruh. If your strain's greater than half your strain threshold, you heal 1 strain when you smoke some pipe weed. Just a little recovery tool, not super great, but especially because magic is fueled by strain, that's definitely a thing where I'm like, I want multiple ways that you can recover. There are stamina potions or energy potions, but also there should be little ways to heal back up some, because we all know about that strain train. And unfortunately, because there aren't force dice in this, it can't be you can do healing trance or whatever to recover strain faster after a fight. Which one is it? Is it center of? It's not center of being. It's a different one.
Which one?
Where you roll your force dice to heal extra strain at the end of the encounter.
Armand has that, but I can't think of what it is off the top of my head.
No, it's not actually healing trance. That's that improves your natural healing over time if you commit force dice. But there's a talent for that, so it's
well, shit.
Okay.
Now I gotta look it up. Hang on.
So I was like, okay, so there's probably not going to be a lot of talents that give that up too much. There is the one that lets you use survival instead, but some different ways to recover some stuff, and it's just good fluff, because these are always the questions that I think to ask and that I know people will ask.
Oh, it's
right?
balance. It's called balance.
Balance. Okay, yeah, that's a good one. People will ask about these things. So hey, if I want to go get a beer, what do I drink? And there's also stat lines for just ordering a drink in a bar or something, rather than carrying it around with you. If I eat rations, what's actually in them? There's the mechanics for picking up a deck of cards, which I think I actually edited recently to include the rules at a high level. But okay, gambling is cool if you're playing it straight, and skullduggery if you're cheating. And I don't necessarily describe what the rules for any card games are, but a deck of cards exists, so there are card games. Sorry, stretching my legs. Been here a while. And I think you said earlier you had questions to ask me about Shinsekai stuff. Do you want to just get those out of the way now? We can continue to lose the audience and save all the fun stuff for the end.
I get. Well, I don't know. We've been talking about tabletop stuff for how long?
Hour 20.
That's a lot.
We can break it up.
We can break it up. Maybe we'll come back to it.
Okay.
Because, as I said, there's been a lot of other things happening.
Okay. Well, we alluded to a lot of stuff earlier. So, well, this is where we're going to start giving you the generic spoilerified warning, because we're going to start talking about stuff.
Yeah.
So, Lucky, which one of our many discussion topics do you want to dive into first?
With Dresden Files, because unfortunately, I have not actually listened to all that much. See, Lucky made a mistake. He should have actually got a physical copy of Peace Talks.
Yeah, we had this conversation. Because you were like, oh, I always get the audiobooks, it's really good. And I'm like, yeah, I'll get the audiobook too, but I'm also going to get a real book. And I'm kind of glad, because we've talked about this too, with audiobooks, and even you said that, okay, James Marsters, he's great. I even read the thing in his tone of voice anyway. But it's still his reading pace, which is meant to be clear to you, the reader.
Yeah.
Which means it'll take you a few hours to get through it, even though I believe as far as Dresden File standards go, Peace Talks is kind of short.
I think the audio is still 13 hours.
Yeah, that's still pretty good. So 2 points of reference. One, Peace Talks is 39 chapters, I want to say. If you hear me rifling through, it's because I literally physically have my copy handy. Okay, it doesn't have a table of contents. So I'll just find what the last chapter is. It's pretty fast. Yeah, 36 chapters. Just for reference, because I was kind of interested in going back and seeing some stuff, I did go back and listen to Skin Game. And I did somehow find enough time to listen to all of that in this week also. But you've been doing a lot of like streaming and playing new games and stuff, so.
Yeah, this is the problem I have. Lucky is good at multitasking, but that often means that he's not fully paying attention to something, or he can't devote all his attention to something.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake later. At often points, even though I was familiar with Skin Game, I would pause my audiobook to actually focus on new shit going on in 7.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Like, I realized I like using audiobooks, but that's because when I had a life, when I was out and about doing stuff more. I'd be out working. I could listen to when I was traveling, listening to audiobooks. That's when I would listen to audiobooks often. When I'm at home, I want to do stuff.
Honestly, thinking about it, because I've definitely slowed down recently on my audiobook listening. I think that is not that I super go out, but like I got a lot of audiobook listening done when I went to college, between classes and stuff.
Yeah, but when I'm at home, like, I want to play gacha games. I want to, do stuff on the computer, or play video games, watch anime, all this other stuff. And so I can't necessarily divide my mind enough to fully pay attention to peace talks and do other things. Like, I had a point I was going to fucking bring up.
Well, I'll remember because I was listing off a couple of stats. So comparison, Skin Game, which I powered through, but I just had good time to do it, I think, this week. That was 51 chapters, and Lucky's talking about the audio recording is about 13 hours.
Yeah.
I actually timed this because I was able to go back and check because we were in the middle of a discussion. I was like, okay, guys, I'm going to go get my book because I've mentioned this on some other points, but my copy arrived early. I locked in my pre-order with Amazon, and with literally no warning, no email or whatever, it is our official canon that Magical Fairies have delivered this book to me.
Mm-hmm.
My copy of the book showed up a day early on Monday before it was officially supposed to come out. No, I wasn't an asshole and talked about it with anybody. I just mentioned I got it early.
Yes.
So at 9 o'clock that night, I started reading it. I was done before midnight. So, and yes, I don't know if that's super impressive or not, but Omega did read a 340-page book in under 3 hours. And that was with being distracted by, like, Twitter and stuff sometimes.
And that's the other thing. Like, Lucky's like a real fast reader. He's a real fast reader, y'all.
Yeah, I've actually worked up to pick up the audiobook of Peace Talks now, and it's good because I get to actually go back and fill some stuff in. I've already spotted a couple of like lines that I missed or didn't pay attention to in the first couple chapters.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, I'm already done with the book and have been done for several days.
So like you don't have to necessarily pay your full attention because like here's the thing: when I read a book, I'm not doing anything else besides reading that book. Like gets
what I do these days is I pull up music on like YouTube or something and just run it through and read.
Yeah, and so like a lot of times listening to this audiobook, I have to pause and do stuff because let me tell you, Lucky right now is playing Azure Lane, Destiny's Child, and playing Ghost of Tsushima while recording. That's how he multitasks.
That's a lot of stuff. I'm not doing that much. I should do some of that, but I'm not.
Yeah,
we'll maybe talk about Isomer more later.
but like. I can dedicate like a little bit of my time to all these things because I don't necessarily need like 100% of my focus. But when I'm experiencing something like super new that has like details and information, I need to dedicate more information to it. Like in Azure Lane, I just need to click the next boat and click attack. Destiny's Child is just hit the repeat function. Ghost of Tsushima right now, which I'm going to talk about later. It's a fun game. I'm just running around filling in the map as I kill fucking Mongols and bandits. Not a lot of attention is needed. So I have enough attention to spare to listen to Omega and chime in when necessary.
Right. You can split your focus. And honestly, I could, depending on what conversations we were having, I could split my focus more too. Like I very frequently like farmed FGO while we're recording.
But as I said, a brand new book, it's like that's something like where I have to actually pay attention to things.
Yeah, if you wanted me to actually read Peace Talks while we did the show, that wouldn't work. Maybe if I read it aloud, but otherwise, no.
Yeah.
That is one of those things, like when I'm writing adventures and stuff, or just writing, I cannot do audiobooks or podcasts or anything either.
No.
I very often can't do YouTube videos. I have to just, like, if I want to... Usually I want to, like, try and listen to something just so that certain parts of my mind are busy and don't get distracted.
Mm-hmm.
But usually I just have to listen to appropriate music. Like, because otherwise, it's rough. we've talked before about how multitasking is kind of an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like parallel processing, like different parts of your brain can do different tasks at different times. Actually, you can probably hear that. I just, for some reason, for instance, while I was talking, I was busting up some cardboard to throw in my recycle because it was bothering me on the floor. That used my hands. When I'm speaking aloud to you, I'm not using my hands. I can do manual stuff with my hands while talking or listening. Most people find it very hard to talk and listen at the same time. I wonder why.
Mm-hmm.
So there are different areas of your brain that if you stretch out too much, you will lose focus of something. And I've noticed this, especially with video games. If I actually care about like story stuff, I can't do videos or podcasts with it. I have to pause. Yes. This is why I have trouble doing anime a lot of the time and doing other stuff, because there's subtitles and there's like a whole, heck, even watching movies, that's like there's some stuff you can kind of binge in the background, but some stuff you have to I have to focus my attention on, and that means that's my whole brain. Like, if I have to read and listen to a show, like I have to take in the audio and sound design and read subtitles, that's like 90% of my focus.
Lucky is a little bit better. Usually if I'm watching something new, I can play maybe a gacha game while doing it, but that's usually
it depends on stuff, and there will very frequently, I think, with that, be that. Lucky, do you do the old, wait, what was that, pause and go back?
Occasionally. Not, probably...
Not constantly, but sometimes you're like, hold on, wait, that sounded important. Roll that back to me?
Yeah.
Which I will say, that is the thing about reading. When you're reading entirely on your own, you don't get that, usually. Unless you, completely don't take in a line, and then the next line is and then I shot him. I was like, wait, what? Why are we doing that? But generally, your mind, I've noticed this, at least for me, my mind just edits out the bits I don't catch. And I still get the gist of the story. That's usually with good writing.
That's, I think that's actually how the human brain is wired, is we will literally just blank out unneeded words.
Yeah, your brain is an amazing organ. Your brain throws away so much trash information you don't need all the time, just so you don't lose your shit. And it does so automatically. Did you know, by the way, some people might not know this, your eyes actually see upside down.
Yeah.
The way your retina works, the image is mirrored, your brain just flips that for free. So you actually see the world in the correct orientation, where up and down are correct. It's nuts. Your brain's doing that all the time. That's why we talk about stuff like instincts and first impressions, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's your brain going whoa, hold on, I've noticed something.
It's all information taking and pattern recognition. Just at a super high fucking level.
Yeah, your brain will do so many things. It's an amazing organ that you are not 100% in control of. And it's just piloting. It's really interesting to think about certain stuff in context, but I'm going to avoid spoilers for people. But we may also spoil earlier books, so if you're not caught up on the Dresden Files and don't want to be spoiled, plug your ears now. But so Peace Talk. So Lucky's not done. I am done, because for the Dresden Files, it's really quite short. And that's because I feel comfortable saying that this is not a spoiler. It's literally part 1 of a book, though.
Oh, yeah.
That's why Battlegrounds is also coming out this year. It's because, in addition to all the real-life shit that we don't need to go over again, but Jim Butcher has been through a lot of stuff in the last 6 years. I think the way he phrased it was that he got divorced, got remarried, his dog died, he moved, and he lived in an apartment without a writing space for several years while a shitty contractor tried to build him a shitty house. So he had a lot of stuff going on. Yeah. It's okay. We understand. He got back to it. But the other thing was that Peace Talks was apparently turning into a monster of a doorstopper. And his publisher gently suggested that maybe he should split it into 2 books, and he did. So the way I understand it is that we got some more dynamic action beats. So there was basically some additional climaxes put in this book so that it could be a complete story and flow into a second story. But I will let you know right now, Lucky, there are some plot threads that don't get resolved in Peace Talks.
Mm-hmm.
And not in the vague, ooh, this character will come back someday. No, literally, these things are brought up as potentially urgent plot threads, and then they just go away because they're going to be presumably in the second novel.
I can understand. I think Lucky's got through all the setup of the story.
Probably. So, listening to Skin Game and thinking about the past couple books, Peace Talks is really a return to form. Because, ever since Changes, the books have been a little non-standard, I want to say.
Oh, yeah.
They've had a lot of very urgent, critical setup right away. Harry himself has been through a lot of stuff where, I've already thrown out the spoiler warning. Literally, he hasn't necessarily had a home to go to in some of these stories. He's been out and about, fuck, I still don't even know if I want to say. It's been years. Okay. He was dead for a little bit. He got better.
Yep.
It's called Ghost Story,
better.
guys. It's not that hard. But it's why I gave the warning, right? Like, you gotta be cautious, okay? But like a lot of shit happened to him, and this is the first one where it's like, now there's still some displacement, there's still some shenanigans, right? There's some buildings are on fire, but at the same time, it feels very much like a typical Dresden story where it starts perfectly normal. Oh, we just have a casual conversation, and then it's immediately like, hey, Dresden, we need you to do this. Hey, Dresden, this came up. Hey, Dresden, what are your thoughts on this? And, like, in the first, 5 chapters, he is, as Ebenezer McCoy says, up to his ears in alligators.
Yeah.
Just, immediately. And it's got a very classic Dresden feel of just like, well, shit, I guess this is just my Tuesday now. I've just got to deal with this today.
He's got to deal with literally fucking everything.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting that, this one is still very close to Skin Game. I think it's about 6 weeks later. Because some stuff has still happened, and actually, there's a little bit of retconning, which I'm not sure how I feel about. Because I listened to Skin Game again recently, and I believe you were talking about being past this scene. So in Peace Talks, Murphy says that the doctors are going to be happy if they can get her back to 50%. At the end of Skin Game, which chronologically was not that far ago, they say that she might get back to 90%. So I'm a little like, Jim, I don't know if you took that to a twist or if that's just because she hadn't had enough time to fully recover yet or what, but I'm kind of like, I'm a little like, you took that one back a little bit, but okay, it's been 5 years, whatever. That's it. And I gotta be honest, Murph's still a badass on a spiritual level, so it's mostly fine. There's a lot of scenes I want to talk to you about later.
I did get through the scene where you meet Murph and fucking dipshit shows up.
Yeah, fucking Rudolph. But that's one of those things that I'm like, don't expect that plot thread to necessarily go anywhere yet, buddy.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that, like, we're bringing it up. We're putting it on Harry's shit-to-do list. Well, he's got about 50 other things to do. So, the book flows very fast because, like I said, it's going to have a literal second half. It has an honest-to-God, full-blown cliffhanger. Like, it's like, we do a thing, we get a climax, and it's like, well, okay, now I gotta go deal with the other problem we introduced in the third act. So, it's a really interesting read. I won't spoil all the beats. There's a lot of great characters, though. There's, and for people who haven't read it yet but aren't caught up, there's a very interesting, there's an interesting character. We get to meet, Sigrun Gard's sister, another Valkyrie. She's great.
Lovely.
She's very different from Miss Gard, but, it's very fun. There's a lot of interesting stuff in here, and, there's a lot of tension. It's not quite as action-packed. There are a couple of dedicated action scenes. I'm in one of them in the audiobook now. Which you might be, too. The second time Ebenezer shows back up?
No, I've only gotten through the first point.
Okay. Yeah, okay, you probably haven't gotten to that next chapter yet. But yeah, you're about to hit after he's with Murphy, and then the second bad thing happens.
Yeah,
third or fourth bad thing.
That's the part. Thomas in the cell. That's where I get that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I actually had to take a moment there. I was like,
No, that's when I read that, I was like I knew that was kind of coming because of the trailer they did. But when you realize the depth of shit that's happening, you're just like, fuck. And Harry has that realization too, where he's surrounded by guards, and he's just like, depending on what this chick says, I might have to take all 5 of these guys, and I'm probably gonna die. But I'm Harry Dresden. I will try.
Yeah, like the whole scene with like there's a lot of heavy shit here. Like the whole scene with the first scene with McCoy.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, damn.
That
I think you're in the right,
running
also,
plot thread is the
damn.
family tension.
Yeah,
it gets spicy. There's a couple of big action scenes, and there's some kind of what the fuck roller coasters in there. But actually, in generally, this one's very. Once you get over the initial shock. Other than, I think, the final act twist, because, again, like I said, we're building into there being another book immediately after this, which is unusual for Dresden Files. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of, super crazy twists and turns and what-the-fuck moments. There's a lot of that in the setup. And who knows, my brain may be editing things again. It may have made some of those scenes, which were supposed to be more dramatic, play through a lot faster. Because I ate this book like it was candy.
Nom, nom, nom.
God, I love candy.
I mean, it was literally water to a thirsty man.
Well, yeah, no. And it was magically arrived early, and I carved out my night for it. I was like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna read this then.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna look a gift book in the mouth. That's why I like the audiobooks though, because they're a lot slower and you can enjoy that stuff at kind of a different pace, you know. Got a lot of character. Though again, it's a little weird. It's been years, but it was a little strange to hear James Marsters. James Marsters can't decide what the fuck Mab sounds like. She's had like 5 different voices over the years.
Honestly, she sounds a lot more now.
Which
like,
in certain books has been appropriate. I don't know if that's how it was. In Skin Game, she's kind of the I'm down here, my knight. I'm gonna knock your head into a elevator for sassing me, bitch. In the first book, she has a mysterious Slavic accent that never comes up again. Which, again, no fault of Marsters for that one. Butcher just didn't ever bring that up, the fact that Mab has an accent. In other books, she has sounded scratchier. So she's a little down here in this one.
Yeah.
That's okay. Again, it's been years, and the point is that the message gets across. And Harry Dresden sounds consistently all the time. Love him. Mm-hmm. It's great. I can't wait till I get my favorite.
It's been a while since I've listened to him, but I feel like Dresden actually seems a little gravelier than when they first started.
Actually, that is, I think, a drifting thing. Is that Marsters has actually gotten into the character a little bit better, and that is how Harry is. Is that like?
Oh yeah.
He has definitely gotten more put upon and more stressed, and one of the themes of Peace Talks is definitely kind of the getting too old for this shit kind of thing.
Yeah.
That conversation recurringly comes up.
So I just want to be a dad.
I just want to do stuff. I just want to deal with shit, and I love the conversation. It's again spoilers, but it's an early setup where he's having a conversation with Thomas about Thomas being a future dad, and he's like, "Dude, you'll be okay. I, Harry Dresden, professional chaos man, have been a dad for like 2 months. It's fine. You'll be okay." He says he's been a full-time dad for a couple of months. And honestly, he has a really good relationship with his daughters. It's
like, here's the thing that bugs me. He doesn't. I can't remember her name. He doesn't seem to acknowledge her as a daughter. Like I've heard.
Dresden's internal dialogue doesn't refer to Benea as his other daughter, but Maggie certainly seems to treat her like a sister, which is adorable.
Making pancakes is great.
And Thomas is so right, isn't he?
Yeah.
Dude, everybody wants them to make pancakes. And Harry's just like he's not wrong. Shit. Fuck, he's got me.
Like, honestly, like, Thomas Wraith is also one of those really good characters, and I'm really sad to see, like, this has happened to him.
Yeah, I feel so, because there's no Thomas at all in Skin Game, and there's only a little bit of Thomas in Cold Days. There's almost no Thomas in Ghost Story. Like, the Thomas levels fluctuate book to book. We've been in a low level of Thomas for several years. And it's almost sad to go back right into the film and be like, yeah, Thomas, and then immediately the plot twist, the big Act 1 plot twist is, oh, Thomas has been sidelined because of some shenanigans, and you're like, you feel Harry's pain where he's just like, fuck, now I gotta work on this.
Mm-hmm.
And well, so it's not an open secret. Very few people know that Thomas is Harry's brother. Not a lot of people know this fact. If those people did know that fact, I feel like they'd be a lot more gentle with Thomas, because they should understand the lengths Harry goes to for family. He changed the political structure of the supernatural world the last time one of his family members was locked up and was gonna die.
You say political structure, you mean he literally committed genocide.
Correct, yes. He created a power vacuum by deleting the Red Court. All of them. Well, most of them. There might be some baby Red Courts who didn't get got, but most of them got. They will never ever be a problem on the level that they were. That's how Harry motherfucking Dresden does business. So, like, as cool and as strong as the Svartalfs are, I feel like if they understood what they were dealing with, they would be like, shit, maybe we should let this guy figure out what the fuck's going on.
I like the Svartalfs, honestly.
They're interesting. They're a faction that we've leaned on really hard lately.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're cameoed a couple of times, but like they don't really spring onto the scene until a couple of short stories and then the last couple of books. And they're apparently big in a lot of the short stories, actually, thinking about it. Like, I think that's one of the central characters in the first Bigfoot short story. Which, by the way, all 3 of the Bigfoot short stories are published in a collection, so you can get the Bigfoot trilogy if you want. It's pretty cool. I like them a lot. And I think this is the first time River Shoulders actually shows up fully in a novel. He'll show up later at the peace talks.
Oh, okay.
No more details about him, but that's like fair warning, buddy. Hopefully you remember all your side characters, because man, there's a lot of them are gonna come up, and some of them you're not gonna know who the fuck they are unless you've read all the short stories.
Honestly, that's probably something I should probably put on. That's something I still haven't done, is read all the short stories. That's something I actually...
there are 2 collections, which I think get... technically 3 with the Bigfoot one, but there's 2 full collections, Side Jobs and Briefcases.
Mm-hmm.
They collect, I think, like 90% of the stuff he's written, except some of the microfictions that have been on his website.
Yeah.
Which actually, that's interesting, because remember that the winter one is... the Christmas one is written after Peace Talks and Battlegrounds. So we know that Harry's okay, and we know that his daughter's okay, and we know that some people don't die, but we also know there's a lot of hospital and funeral bills coming, but we could have expected that too. It's a Harry Dresden story. Shit happens.
Also, we will know that he and Mob are still on terms.
Speaking terms? Yeah.
Like, that's something like I also, like, again, Lucky loves Shades of Grey, and that's one of the things I like about Queen Mob.
I love Mab as a character. I don't like her as a person, but as a character, she's great, because she is that weird, harsh, necessary evil part of nature. Like, she has a job, and motherfucker, she will do it. She takes her obligations seriously, but yeah, it's
she's an complete evil witch. She will literally throw you into an elevator door, but she'll also get your daughter a really cool ring that makes it snow. Because
and she only slaps Harry. She claps him back pretty hard, because the way she phrases it is, I will take your opinions under advisement, but I do not invite your judgment. Because he calls her a bitch about something, and basically it's like, okay, buddy, I'll take your feedback, but you don't get to sass me like this. I'm doing some motherfucking work.
I should take that approach with Boots more often. Maybe I should have punched him.
I appreciate your feedback, but I don't need your value judgments. Thanks, buddy. But yeah, she's a great character, so they still have a relationship. Stuff happens. That's actually kind of important to know, because things will get a little freaky in the future. But yeah, we'll talk about it more once Lucky's got through the whole thing. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of return to form, and I like it a lot. And I am gonna probably not right away, but I'm gonna lock in that pre-order for Battlegrounds already too soon, because I hope Magical Fairies deliver that one to me early. By the way, Lucky and I have decided that Mab definitely uses Amazon. She would. Mab's been to Disney World.
Well, I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy that the Fae don't have the problems that Wizards have, so they can use things like cell phones and whatnot. And I totally just want to think of the idea of, like, because I completely don't believe that, like, the Fae are immune to stress and whatnot. And being a fucking Winter Queen cannot be.
Oh yeah, no, Mab has that conversation a lot actually about, like, the very serious stuff that happens in cold days, where she's like, "No, dude, I was immortal once. I know about stuff. I have a hard job."
So I do like that sometimes she just binge shops on Amazon. Just like, what interesting things have... Oh my god, that's what it is. She just buys random mortal things that she doesn't understand. It's like, what the fuck is this, dude?
Oh, and poor Harry is probably the asshole now who gets called on to be like, "Hey, explain this to me. What's this?"
Which sucks, because Harry doesn't know anything about the internet or stuff.
I know, yeah. Harry talks about that early when he's talking about his Svartalf apartment, where he's like, "I should talk to Molly and see if we can talk to the Svartalfs and getting a TV in here, or an internet thing." People go crazy about the internet. It's got to be good.
Oh man,
because we know that Harry Harry has a dated, but he understands pop culture, because he remembers cartoons from when he was a kid, and he occasionally he watches movies at a drive-in, so he's seen current movies and some TV, and he reads books, obviously. I'm pretty sure he's too old to have gotten on the video game bandwagon. Other than maybe some classics, so I don't know. He references a lot of pop culture stuff.
I mean, he plays D&D,
that he plays D&D.
Yes.
Or the in-universe equivalent. Where, interestingly, Harry Dresden plays a barbarian with mighty thews and just hits things.
Yeah, doesn't he actually play... Is it a female barbarian?
It might be. It's definitely just a big, muscly barbarian that hits things, because that's like his decompress. He, like... I think that's actually a short fiction somewhere, where he one of the caster casts a fireball, and he has comments about where the range stops, and has to have that conversation about just like it's just the rules, dude. It's an abstraction. Because
actually, fun fact: if you pick up the Dresden Files fate system, it's actually billed as fucking Billy writing the thing, and Dresden's giving feedback on the.
Yeah, I don't know if Axe knows who Billy is because I don't think he's read the second book yet. But yeah, it's between canon characters with commentary with Harry and Bob the Skull.
It's actually pretty fun.
Oh, you're on the third? Okay, so you know who Billy is. You got pretty far. Yeah, so Billy Borden, nerd werewolf, helps Harry Dresden write the book, and it's full of not literal but fake post-it notes that have like Harry's notes in there. At one point, Harry has a fucking shopping list written in the margins, and Billy's like, "Boss, what's this?" And he's like, "Sorry, I needed something with paper to hand." It's great. But yeah, so overall, I have positive thoughts on Peace Talks. I know some people are kind of like. Some people seem to be upset that it is a 2-part book, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, but would you want... So assume that, at minimum, Battlegrounds is the same length as Peace Talks. Like, it's a literal 50-50 split. Do you want a 700-page book in 70 chapters or something? Do you want that, people? I would say yes, but no. Like, on the one hand, okay, cool, yeah, sure, I love more Dresden, but also, that's a huge fucking book. That's a lot of book to write, and a lot of book to read, and a lot of book to pick up.
Doorstop!
Yeah. Yeah, no, like, so, it's definitely a thing that you can get away with splitting, and it's okay. And, it has been confirmed that after Battlegrounds, Mirror Mirror is still on the menu.
Okay, so Mirror Mirror is still happening, okay.
Yes.
That was the thing that
confused a lot of people, because Jim said that Mirror Mirror would be next, but that's because Battlegrounds only exists because Peace Talks was so long. So we're still on track to have a book called Mirror Mirror that will probably be about the stuff you might expect from a book called Mirror Mirror in a series that regularly references old-ass Star Trek. That, and also I believe Jim has said that he wants Harry to have to quote-unquote break every law of magic before the series is done.
That's on theme, I think.
So yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff that can happen with that, and a lot of interesting what if scenarios he could comment on. So we'd have to see what kind of stuff happens. Because Harry Dresden is usually peaceful when he's not working, quote unquote.
I mean, he lives like an everyday life just like anybody else. It's just, what was the term?
I believe the phrase that has been used, and I think even Jim's used this phrase, is that the novels are basically set on the... Actually, no, Harry says it, I think, in a novel, where he talks about just like, you only see me on the worst week I have every year. Yeah. He's talking to another NPC or another character who's like, not an NPC, he's talking to another side character who's like, it's been a while since I've seen you. Are you working? Are you beat to shit? And he's like, listen, you only see me I only usually see you when there's trouble, which is like the one bad week I have every year. The rest of the year, I'm like 90%
I think like the first
fine.
couple books, like years passed between them, or like
it used to be that every book, Jim was able to turn these books out once a year, and every book was basically a new year.
Yeah.
With short stories filling in between. Obviously, the real life stuff futzed that up a little, but I think, honestly, depending on the timeline, it sounds like Peace Talks was going to change that anyway, because like I said, it's only set about 6 weeks after Skin Game.
Yeah.
Now, and having, again, listened to Skin Game recently, that has quite a long reference, which, God, I can't even imagine, because Harry's living on an island at the time.
Parkour.
Yeah, it's still really good. Parkour! But yeah, so we'll talk more about Peace Talks once Lucky's done with it. I have a positive feelings. I really want to get Battlegrounds. There's a lot of interesting stuff. There's a lot of Chekhov's guns that come back. A lot of fun interactions, and we'll have more to talk about it.
Like I said, Lucky, now that I think about it, if like Lucky hasn't read Side Jobs or Briefcases, so I might have to fucking do that.
I don't know if you have to, but there are definitely a lot of small character cameos that, and also generally the short stories are actually really good. Like, they fill in a lot of details. There are some which are about side characters, which are really good.
Mm-hmm. But, as I said, like
I think
again, it's not that I don't want to, it's just that Lucky is literally doing too many fucking things at once.
Yeah,
and audiobooks just fucking... I'm at 90% capacity right now, and a fucking audiobook is like 40%. I'm like,
Yeah, you're gonna pull a disc, run out your RAM.
Mm.
But yeah, what I was going to say really quick was that just talking about I believe it's Side Jobs is the first one. That, for instance, on the timing, that one has, and point of view characters, that one has a short story called Aftermath, which is set immediately after changes from Murphy's point of view.
Oof.
Yeah. And there are a couple which have some stuff. And sometimes the short story stuff is alluded to in the core books, or honestly, I don't know the timing. It might be that the core books allude make up a story, make up a noodle incident, and then Jim writes that as a short story later.
Who knows?
But yeah, that's part one of our Peace Talks talk. I took about 30 minutes. So, do you want to talk about Final Fantasy or goes to Tsushima first?
Let's go with Final Fantasy. Because
okay,
you've been putting in the work.
Yes, I said I was getting back to it, and I did, and I got back to, and I finished Final Fantasy VII Remake. It did take me about 40 hours to get through all the chapters, and I believe you mentioned this last week. Once you do get the rundown of it, once you get into the final bit, it flows very fast. All of it runs together. There's a little bit of padding for pacing purposes. I think I said this earlier. Like they do some restructuring. This is also, hey, this section is going to be spoilers for regular Final Fantasy VII and for Remake. If you're not interested or haven't done those, go away now. Sorry, but this is how it is. So I was actually quite surprised initially that they restructured the prison cell bits. And I'm pretty sure I can see why they changed the Trails of Blood, because, God, even for PS1 shitty graphics shot on Shitty-O, that was really, really graphic. Holy shit, there was a lot of blood. So, like, changing it to just Genova goo, that makes a lot more sense, and makes it a lot easier for the game to have a T rating, than it to just be filled with people Sephiroth murdered. But the prelude to that with the drum, that was, like, from a plot standpoint, that was completely unnecessary. From a gameplay standpoint, though, I understand that that's kind of breaking up the tension. That's part of the ebb and flow of the story structure. And also, mechanically, it's so that, and you can, well, not even mechanically, but just in general, but yes, gameplay, you can get used to having Aerith in your party again. And also so that Red 13 has more time to build character. So that he feels like a member of the team when he actually sticks along with us for the big ultimate quest at the end. It does mean they did some stuff different. Like, not everybody does their intro at the top of the tower with Rufus Shinra. Only Barrett, Aerith, and Red do it at the bottom with Heidegger. It's still hilarious. Avalanche, Flower Girl, Lab Rat Dog. I really appreciate Red's voice actor, by the way. He's pretty good. I was actually I was like, okay, what voice is he going to have? And then he has kind of an erudite faux British voice, and I'm like, perfect. You asked the question, what is this thing? Well, I am me.
I mean, it does come from Cosmo Canyon.
Yeah, I know, but it's pretty fun. He's a great character. It's interesting to see that they just decided not to. It's probably because they didn't want to give him a full set of, or knew he wouldn't have a full set of like skills and limits and shit, so they didn't bother making him fully playable. But it's really interesting to see because he does have a limit break. He uses it fairly often in combat. Stardust Ray. And if you look closely at his model, he has the playable bits. He's wearing the collar type thing, which has the materia slots, which have 2 slots in it. I don't know what materia he's got slotted in, but he does have materia slotted there. So, like, clearly they've built his model to have all his animations and be playable. It's just he probably wouldn't be a fully fleshed out character, so they decided to skip it and make him AI only. I'll be really interested to see what they do from there. But yeah, so the last part where we left off, I was doing side quests before climbing the plate. That also had some padding. I felt a little patty. The bit with Leslie was a little bit weird. But we did get to see the Dawn again, which I guess is we're kind of doubling back on that plot thread to explain why Don Corneo is not dead, but also is elsewhere, so that later we can throw him off a fucking cliff, please. Please let me get rid of that scumbag. I love to hate him. I love him, but I hate him. And the boy needs to get his comeuppance. But that section was a little drawn out. I'm actually kind of sad there was no golden shiny wire or hope line. But that segment was pretty cool, the climbing and the fighting the search teams, and, the music was really, well, okay. First of all, in general, the music in this game, it's great. I can't believe it, but I'm pretty sure Square's going to get me to pay like $35 fucking for the MP3 version of this, just because it's not on YouTube, and apparently they're aggressively taking it down most of the part. The music design in this is brilliant. The phases, the transitions, the callbacks, the call forwards, the original comp. fucking spoilers, but holy shit, Genova Dreamweaver. That sound design is so pitch perfect because it starts out subtle, and then it gets a little weird, and then when you get to the third phase, the synth kicks in, and you're like, yeah. I watched. I don't know why TV Tropes decided to document this, but I was talking about the music because they usually link to good stuff. They had several links to several streamers streaming it, and almost everybody they linked to, when it got to that time code, was just like, oh my god, the music! And I'm like, yeah, there it is. Also, I talked about this before, but I love, there's a subtle cue in it, in the interstitial before it loops, it actually plays the beat to One Wing Angel in there. It's the music design in this is so good. Oh, fuck. And when they bust out, it's called Midgar Expressway in game, but they bust out Crazy Motorcycle Chase. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I didn't know if they were going to do it, because we left the scene and we didn't do the music yet. We paused to do some more weird plot shit. But then it kicks in, and it kicks up, and it doesn't stop, and then it goes through those who fight, and those who fight further, and it goes back, and it does all the stuff. It's great. This is a masterclass of audio. I got chills when Trails of Blood started playing. I think the only pieces of music this doesn't do, maybe, is some of the situational stuff. Like, I don't think the Temple of the Ancients music or the Shinra Mansion music plays in any form. Other than maybe remixes that I haven't found. There's no official Gold Saucer theme or, like, Costa del Sol, right? Those are all just remixes that you can get music discs for.
Yeah.
And, like, the Wutai themes, I think the only major leitmotif that's not like a dungeon or locational theme that they don't do is Chasing the Man in Black, but that makes sense because that's the leitmotif for the next act of this story. But also somehow they managed to work in Those Who Hear the Cry of the Planet in a amazing remix. It's called 7 Seconds Till the End. It's one, that scene is crazy, but also just the music. Fuck.
I'm trying to remember what scene that was. It's like
that's the post-climax after the final boss, where Cloud and Sephiroth fight in space.
Oh, yeah.
And it just starts to slowly play the...
Okay, that was the scene I was thinking you were talking about, but I wasn't sure, because that scene is fucking wild. Just...
Oh, yeah, in case that's not clear, yes, I've beaten the game. Like you said that earlier, I put in the work. Like, I've done the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, okay. That's an interesting thing, calling it remake. There's a lot... And some stuff was maybe semi-spoiled for me before I got into this, but I picked up on the meta-narrative to the remake long ago.
It is very meta. Holy shit.
Oh, yeah, no. The Whispers are literally the audience, or rather, the purest audience. They are the people who are like, you can't change anything! Or just like, you know, like, they are the arbiters of fate that, like, this is the way things should be. And at the end of the game, you punch fate in its big smug face, and are like, fuck you, I make the rules. And then you have a really bitchin' fight with Sephiroth. Where you think you were wondering if they would, but they bust out a really crazy remix of One Winged Angel too, with phases and themes and shit. It's great. But you get a lot of well, I don't know if he's a Sephiroth man children. Don't say that stuff, X. That's not. Here's the thing. There's a lot of things that are implied by the ending sequence that are not clear. I think, based on the ending sequence, it implies that Zack lives, but also that doesn't necessarily follow the last 40 hours I played, because where was he? Right? Like, there's a lot of interesting stuff back and forth. It could be a separate timeline, it could be something else, we don't know yet. We don't know because the game ends at that point with, like, the unknown journey will continue. Like, they play it out that, like, okay, and honestly, I think, as a player and as a fan of Final Fantasy VII, I think they did what they had to do for a remake, because 7 is a game that has a lot of twists and turns. We talked about this before the game came out, right? That, like, there are a lot of plot beats that people know just through pop cultural osmosis. You cannot preserve the beats in the same way logically and still have them have the same impact. Like, it would still be super painful to see Sephiroth stab Aerith in, like, Ultra HD with the fucking music blaring and all that stuff, right? But it wouldn't be a twist. It would just hurt you. Well, yeah, there are design parallels to Advent Children, but several characters also, I think, have precognition knowledge. Like, I don't think that the Sephiroth we fight is necessarily the Sephiroth from Advent Children, but that he knows that Advent Children will happen. Like, Aerith knows future stuff. She knows who
yeah.
characters are before they show up. She knows stuff that's going to happen in the future, but the Whispers are trying to tell her to keep it in.
Honestly, Aerith has some weird freaky powers that she lets her do weird shit, and that's never fucking explained.
We lean a lot harder on her Cetra powers.
Yeah.
In this, which I'm okay with, because she, other than the final plot device of Holy, we really did not actually get into so much, like, what her planet listening actually does.
Yeah.
Just occasionally she would have insight on stuff. But
like, actually,
this doubles down a little bit on the mystic shit. Go ahead.
Like, honestly, I think, like, speaking about the Zack thing, like, I have this weird idea that when you're, like, out there fighting Space Sephiroth, he says something, like, I can't remember the exact, like, honestly, I probably should go see the scene again, but, like, apparently...
Yeah, you've been busy.
Like,
I know you talked about playing the last bits again, too, but obviously you didn't have time to do that because of other stuff.
But, like, at one point it's all, like, he says, like, you can change one thing in these last few seconds. What will you do?
When you go to the space segment, after they have a good fight, but he beats Cloud. Cloud's not quite strong enough yet.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, 7 seconds till the end. What will you choose? And then the impression is that somehow Cloud changed those last couple of seconds with Zack. And Zack drops a heck of a line where he's like, wait, was that all of them?
Yeah. That's my personal theory, but it might, like...
Well, also, in that ending sequence, we show that Biggs is still alive. And there's a headband and gloves, so Jesse could have survived. Wedge might have lived. I don't know. It sounds like the Whispers... It almost seems like the Whispers re-killed him, but also maybe they didn't.
Yeah.
But when I saw that boy again in Shinra Tower, I was like, no, my boy, no, go home. You can't be here. You're gonna get killed. And maybe he did get killed. Or maybe he didn't get killed. Maybe he got killed and unkilled. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. The ending is very ambiguous about stuff, and I think it was just supposed to... One, it's supposed to be a satisfying climax for the game. Because as cool as Motorball or whatever it is, he wouldn't be a good fitting final boss for a game, right?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that motorcycle sequence was fucking baller.
Oh, it's great, but it doesn't have the emotional storyline impact of fighting the Arbiters and then fighting Sephiroth.
Mm-hmm. And Fate Bahamut.
Yes. Which I will still do, I don't know when, but I'll still do the bonus content, because I know you can actually get the Bahamut materia and other shit. So I gotta work on some of this stuff. Hopefully it'll be easy. And I gotta, like, level out some stuff. But, yeah, so you have a very, very big climax that you go through. A lot of people, by the way, theorize that the 3 Arbiters are, Laws, Yaj, and blah, blah, blah. The 3 guys from Advent Children. Because they shoot, they punch, and they sword. And they're from an alternate timeline that doesn't yet exist. So there's a lot of theory that because they have similar fighting styles to those guys, that they're basically them through time or something. There's a lot of time fucking in the last 30 minutes of this game. Not that I mind, but it's I think it's very clearly a setup for them to being like, okay, guys, we understand you. We're gonna do the remake thing, but we have to be able to change stuff because, you know, when Sephiroth says "from here out it is unknown," the future from here is not yet made, right? That's another one of those meta comments where that's talking to the audience of like, hey, the future doesn't exist yet, so give us some leeway.
The only thing I'm really concerned about is if they're gonna keep making the Whispers be a thing.
I feel like not.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping.
I think that's the point of the climax.
Is that they've broken fate. So, because, like, honestly, like, I understand why they did it and why they did it, but the Whispers things just really felt added on to me at points. I'm just
they were, because that was the remake acknowledging the fact that this game already exists, right?
Yeah.
So they're very meta, and they feel very weird and alien.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they're kind of assholes, because while they will keep you alive, they'll also kill people.
Yeah. And they're always a bitch to fight. Jesus.
Well, yeah, you're not supposed to fight them. So they're weird and spiritual.
Spiritual.
That said, that was a great meta commentary, because apparently they considered Barrett being the guy who dies, but they decided that would be too cliche. So when Sephiroth stabs Barrett, that's like a big deal. And then that transitions into the Genova fight. It's like, damn. There's a lot. That whole sequence from that chapter on is just a lot of really good boss fights.
Is there something I will appreciate? I like how they took. I think they've been doing this throughout the game, but they take like original, just normal monster mobs and just turn them into full on fucking mini bosses. So you can still get really weird you can still get weird ass monsters, but you ain't fighting them all the time, like the fucking buzzsaw.
Yeah.
Thing. It's like, no, it's just a one-off.
Okay, actually, this is a good point. I'm sorry to interrupt. Devilish brought this up. This is actually a linguistic point, which Lucky may have noticed, because you listen to the Japanese audio. In Japan, there's an untranslatable note in the Sephiroth scene at the end we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
In Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth normally and basically anytime Sephiroth is depicted after his freakout in Nibelheim, Sephiroth uses watashi, which is a very neutral way of speaking. Before that, he used ore, which is a very masculine, proud way of speaking. And apparently he uses that format of speaking in the space scene.
I wasn't paying attention to it I knew the feminine tones, but I wasn't paying attention during the 7-second scene. I have
to double check the audio because I've listened to it in English, and the English cast is pretty good. But I'll check out the Japanese probably through when I replay some chapters and get some stuff. But yeah, so that's very interesting because that Sephiroth asks Cloud for his help, and he's just like, "Yo, bro, want to help me?" And Cloud, being Cloud, is like, "No, fuck you." But that has interesting complications about stuff. Does that mean there's an alternate timeline Sephiroth who's not crazy with Genova cells, who's just a dude doing stuff? I don't know. There were some flash forwards. I noticed that when he meets Sephiroth in person for the first time, not like a hallucination, like he actually cuts the bridge and stuff. Cloud favors his left arm. That's where in the future he will get Geostigma, maybe. And also, when we fight Genova, her illusionary form has that black rain, which resembles Geostigma from Advent Children. Which, and Geostigma was a combination of exposure to Genova cells or to Mako that Sephiroth had corrupted because he died and was still super mad about stuff.
Literally fell into a reactor.
Yeah. And they used several Advent Children clips in some of the future visions too.
Yeah, that's something that I found wild.
Yeah, that was a little weird, and you can tell it looks out of place. Like when they used the flash forward to Cloud fighting and defeating Sephiroth at the end, you're like, "Woo, this model's really different."
Yeah.
And the ending scene with Red and the city, but they do a lot of interesting things. But yeah, so the last bit of the game is just them being like, "Okay, guys, here's what's happening. We need to be able to change stuff because otherwise the game won't be. It'll be just a literal HD remaster, and that's not what we're going for. We want to make the game new and expand on stuff." I don't know if these have been subsequent interviews. I feel like the impression I get is that, even from playing the game, is that generally we're going to follow the plot because Sephiroth is still going to do stuff and organize the reunion or whatever. He's just trying to also break fate so he doesn't lose again, but he'll probably still lose. God, by the way, that's a great line when Aerith rejoins you in the party and Cloud's like, "He's really strong." She's like, "So what? Screw him." Which is literally her delivery in English is "screw him." I love it. So spicy. So feisty.
Oh god, fucking I said Aerith, again, like I said, I played in Japanese, so I just got to hear sassy fucking Saya Miyamoto all day, every day, and it was fucking great. So yeah,
but that's the ending, I think, is that, it implies some stuff is super changed, but also, is it yet? I don't know. Will another Zack with another Buster Sword show up, or does that not work because Cloud has Buster Sword? How do?
Is Aerith still gonna sacrifice herself for the fucking planet?
Yeah, I don't know. Or if we're gonna get out of that. Well, yeah, I in general, so it's interesting that some people are like, "Oh, but this changes the canon." But also, this basically means we don't have to pay attention to the compilation anymore, because it's not necessarily true. Apparently, this was a legit complaint that some people didn't like Advent Children because it meant Sephiroth didn't die for realsies at the end. But I'm like, but isn't the point of the series that people don't really die? They just return to the planet? Eh?
Some people might ignore some themes that the game was trying to go for in favor of their own.
I mean, yeah, it does kind of feel like, man, they have to keep fighting Sephiroth forever, but they don't really. It's just that in that instance, because Sephiroth was on his way to becoming a god, just killing his body doesn't mean that his soul stopped being an asshole. Cloud had to be like, dude, if you keep showing up, I'm gonna be here for a while. I'm gonna keep clapping you back, buddy. I have a better Omni-Slash now, okay, dude?
It's now 8 swords.
Oh, God, I cannot wait until they do Omni-Slash in this engine.
Oh, man.
I hope Cloud's level 3 and 4 is Meteor Rain and Omnislash. Or if Meteor Rain is a skill, that could be cool, because Blade Burst is really fun. I have not actually played Dissidia. I think it's hard to pick up those copies. I should, though. The game seems fun. I think there's a PS4 version of Dissidia. The weird cross game fighting game. But there's a lot of interaction, I believe, with Cloud and Seph there. Seph Dog. But yeah, they have a lot of interesting back and forth, and I still like it. Interesting. Well, that's going to be a problem, because I don't own one of those PSPs. Rebundle, remaster. Do it with Crisis Core, too. But yeah, so there are some people, and obviously, Dirge wasn't the best. I had fun with it, but it's a little weird. They still referenced it, though. They talked about S&G soldier types. There was the underground facility. Could still be true. If it's going to be true, I expect it's going to come back up if we run into Vincent, which we will. I'm reasonably certain that the way we will work on this, right, is that we will actually run into all the characters. We will go to all the major locations, because why would you not, right?
I'm pretty sure they're going to probably maybe make things a little bit more turn. I'm pretty sure we're going to have to go to Wutai for something. Yeah,
I think Wutai will be mandatory, not optional this time.
Yeah.
Just because we've leaned really hard on the Shinra Wutai war, and there's a lot of themes. So I feel like Yuffie will not be optional, which means that eventually we will go to Wutai. And hopefully the segment where she steals all our materia won't be too long. But I'm sure that we will actually get all that, because that also is where Don Corneo gets his resolution, right? So I think we will do a lot of those things that were optional as forced story beats now.
I'm just remembering him, like, somehow Don Corneo gets fucking Elena and Yuffie just tied to a giant fucking statue, and I'm just like, how is this gonna work in a remake?
We'll see. They'll probably suspend him off something or something.
Yeah.
They'll work on it. So yeah, I think a lot of that stuff's going to be probably mandatory.
Oh shit, man.
And in sequence.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking about some of the other sequences, like fucking the scene when you're getting the big materia and they're trying to run the train into that fucking town. Mm-hmm. Like, that might be like, they might do like a full-on train against train combat as you run up the carts. Man, that could be fun.
Yeah, and you run along the tracks. There's going to be a lot of those interesting things that I think they're going to do, but we'll talk more about that in a second. I want to talk about the stuff I like in the remake before we get too deep down the hole. So after about, I think it's like chapter 17 and 18, all that section, there's a lot of really good boss fights, really back to back. Love how they handled Rufus.
Mm-hmm.
VA is great. His line delivery is great. A soldier. I guess that means I own you. Ex-soldier. And he's like, okay. Then he busts out his fucking Devil May Cry moves.
Yeah, he does. Jesus.
But it's a great, fun fight. So this is really interesting. I've complained a little bit before, and I still have some of those thoughts, that there are parts of 7 which try to conform a little bit too much to RPG, the classic JRPG tropes, and it's a little annoying. And there are a couple of enemies in the Shinra Tower who you stop, but usually when they do that, you're not alone. You have Red plus a full party, right? Mm-hmm. So you usually, like, Genova can stop you, but it's usually not a problem because you can work around it. Mm-hmm. Some of the boss fights are a little long because they have a lot of phases and you have to do a lot of stuff, but a lot of them aren't super hard if you can kind of get a grasp of the patterns early and figure out what you're doing. Like, I know the game offers to let you swap materia, but once I had all 4 party members kitted out with my preferred materia setups, I didn't have to. Like, and yeah, sure, that means that, like when it came time to be Baron Aerith versus the Arsenal, which was a great fight, I didn't have a lot of offensive magic materia on them because I'd given most of that to Cloud and Tifa. But it was okay because I was able to use skill setups and other abilities to make it work out fine. And it still worked. And you can still get a decent spread. I even sold some of my spare materia just because I was like, I don't have enough fucking slots for this. But other than just making sure that because Cloud soloed the most often, he always had a cure materia, it was pretty easy to do all the stuff. And a lot of the boss, I'm wondering if maybe those middle sections maybe weren't, we just used some filler, just like, okay, we just need some side quests or some shit to, like, flesh this out. And most of the real big boy design focus went on those final climaxes because all those fights are really good and dynamic. Rufus is really good. It's a little annoying, but the fight versus Specimen H whatever is pretty dynamic. The weird Cthulhu mans.
What was the fight where you didn't have where you had Barrett and it was the Instead of fighting on the elevators, I can't remember the fucking name of the fucking.
That was the arsenal I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That was a really fun dynamic thing with Red, Aerith, and Barrett getting to hang out, do stuff.
Honestly,
it was a lot of fun.
I fully
Barrett
embraced
double
my
catastrophe
Barrett.
that guy, by the way. I got two of those limit breaks in there.
I fully embraced the Barrett tank in that fight, by the way.
Yeah, that's how especially since you mentioned that to me, but that's how I ran most of my fights. Barrett had all my support materia, like barrier and shit, and I gave him provoke, and, I was constantly popping Steel Skin Lifesaver. Because it was just a really easy system to work on and get all that stuff out. But all of those fights flow really well. Cloud versus Rufus, Aaron, and those guys are the thing.
What was the thing that you had to do with, did I tell you the thing to help you beat Rufus, or, because I remember you just try fucking attack him, he just fucking counters. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he has a parry system. You gotta wait till he reloads. I picked up on that pretty good. That was pretty important, because, first of all, counter stance, great skill, love it.
I love it too.
Same with using Operator. I started countering much, much more as Cloud in Shinra Tower. It works a lot better. So, for Dark Star, I countered the dog a lot. And for Rufus, I quickly got the pattern of I need to wait till he reloads, and then I need to either do counter stance or hit him big. And I did. It worked a lot. And then that goes into the motorcycle chase, which is a little long, but really great. Love it a lot. And I appreciate that Red 13 heals you in between segments. Still almost died versus the big motorball guy, but that's just because that's very long.
That's very long. You have to hit a lot of tires.
You gotta break him a lot. I figured out what they were doing, but I'm like, man, shit, okay, this is a little drawn out. But then you go into the Arbiter of Fate fight, which has multiple phases and crazy shit. And then you get the actual final boss, which is Sephiroth, is sup nerds? Which is great, though. Very dynamic. I do hope for an opportunity to properly 1v1 Sephiroth with Cloud at some point, but that'll probably be the climax again, because that's literally how the game originally ended. I wonder if Sephiroth will be shirtless this time. But
Cloud has to be shirtless this time too now.
That could work. I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot of really good action stuff in there, and it's so. So I know some people are probably disappointed or weirded out or whatever, but I think the remake's really, really good, guys. I have a couple of niggling complaints about the engine, which I hope will get kind of patched or maybe adjusted as they have time to Because I gotta be real, even in playtesting, there's some stuff you just can't know until you throw it out to the wider audience.
Oh yeah.
I hopefully think in future they maybe balance out some of the status effects a little better. I want to see, maybe a few more skills and a few more limit breaks, some classic stuff. Sorry, I was readjusting my leg position to stretch my legs. We've been sitting here a while.
I'm trying to think of what my complaints about.
I think we generally agreed that, there's a little too much sleep and stop and stun and shit like that.
Oh yeah, it's way too easy for you just to get fucking stun lock or stop whatever the fuck you're doing, and not enough easy ways to counter it.
I hope that they played it conservative with materia slots because it was the first game. If we get to the final part or whatever, maybe the middle part, I'm hoping that even if they're not the most damage focused, there will be materia focused armor and weapons that go up to all 8 slots or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because what I think the thing to do about all the status effects is to use shit like elemental materia and warding materia defensively to increase your debuff resistance, stuff like that. But it's hard. I think through her weapon selection and I think I paired Tifa with warding, and she had the biomateria, the poison. I think she was pretty robust to poison or sleep or something like that because she had inherent debuff resistances and whatnot. But there were a lot of middle of the road fights where I just got the enemy vomited sleeping gas and everybody just sleeps.
Nap time.
The AI is another thing. I know they did this conservatively, and you can do tactical mode to give them orders, but fuck it. Give me Final Fantasy XII's Gambit system. Make it so I can program my AI, or even just presets. I can set Aerith to play recovery, so she will prioritize healing and support abilities, right?
Yeah.
I can tell Barrett to use his offensive or defensive abilities on his own time, other than just that the AI will. The AI knows how to use provoke. That's about, and knows how to auto cure. That's about it. They need, especially since they show that they can do completely AI party members. I don't think Red 13 was really bad as an AI. He was popping limit breaks and stuff, doing things. I think they can do it. They just wanted to make sure to keep the tactical feel. So I hope that they open up more with the AI a little bit. Other than that, like I said, I was actually quite surprised. A lot of the late game fights are really fun and entertaining and really dramatic and back and forth.
Mhm.
Once the game actually lets you have your whole party and stuff, it's actually really, really strong, and I like it a lot. And there's just so much good story shit. As much as the whispers are kind of annoying, I love that because they address logical questions. Hojo sees Cloud, and for story stuff, Hojo would know. He kept Cloud in a tank in his office for a couple of years, okay?
Mhm.
Like, Hojo's an asshole, but he would recognize. He would be like, oh, hey, it's that guy.
Interesting. Time for experiments.
Because he recognizes him later, but he tries to go, my boy, you weren't in Soldier, and then the whispers are like, don't But they make a logical reason for people not to fuck up and derail the plot, at least through Midgar. And we will see if shit gets derailed or not later. It'll be kind of interesting if there is maybe a subplot that occasionally the Whispers try and re-rail Fate. But in general, I'm hoping they can play a little looser, but also it lets them be like, okay, well, no, we've shown that Jessie is a really competent fighter. How does she die? Oh, well, a Whisper makes her fumble her grenade, because she's supposed to die. Or Cloud almost doesn't take the job. Well, let's break Jessie's leg, so he has to take the job, kind of stuff. They are annoying, but they prevent you from losing track of the plot, at least until we get out of Midgar. God, I can't wait until Hojo has a boss fight and I can punch his smug face. They did a really good job. His mouth is so huge.
And it's just it's just creepy.
It's just like, my mouth is
so
always
great.
open and you can see all my pointy teeth. Ooh, I'm Dr. Hojo. I'm actually the villain. Because if y'all don't know, it's all Hojo's fault. It's always been all Hojo's fault. Fuck Hojo. Hashtag fuck Hojo. But yeah, no, they do a great job with him. They make him more monstrous almost in this. Because, like, while it was weird of him to try and, like, crossbreed Red and Aerith, it's way worse than this, where he's like, so guys, we could always have her, reproduce maybe with soldiers or something, and the rest of the Shinra execs are just, like, uncomfortably adjusting their collars and stuff. Just be like, Like, nobody wants to tell Dr. Hojo that he's fucking crazy, but they're like, Hojo, Doc. But also, you really get the impression that Hojo's only loyalty is to science.
Yep.
Which is basically his motivation all through the actual story, but it's really interesting to see kind of writ large in this. You get a good grasp, I think, of all the Kate Shee cameo is a little weird, but I like it. They're, like, acknowledging that, like, yeah, he can't be in this game for real, but he's going to be in there later.
Mm-hmm.
I like Reeve a lot. They do a lot to character build Reeve as not a bad guy in this right away. Like, he's the only one in that fucking museum who actually gives a real presentation and actually sounds like he cares about his job.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Palmer's kind of an idiot who just wants to go to space. Has butter in his tea. Scarlet is still a sadomasochist, though, man. I mentioned this before, but boy, her boobs are huge now.
Yeah.
Though I think the point is that I didn't even realize this, but apparently, like, she looks like she's maybe in her 30s. She's apparently, like, 40. So, maybe that's what they're going for.
Yeah.
Heidegger gets a lot of action. Love that scene later where he goes up to Rufus and is like, Mr. Vice President. And then Sung is like, Mr. President. And Rufus is like, that's right. Just the little political things. By the way, you were not kidding about that extra drama with the president dying. Loved it. It was great.
Yeah.
The fact that he's not just dead when you get there, and that Barrett has to have this moment of like, am I gonna save your life? And he's like, I'll pay you anything, dude. Just don't kill me. And he's just like, are you gonna give back to the planet? And then there's a turn. When he gets his gun out, he does a turn. He's just like, yeah, the planet. People know that we're money-grubbing assholes, and they don't care. So we still do good for this community. So what you gonna do, big guy? I think it's a very important scene where Barrett's just like, well, I don't rightly know the answer, but I know that you're fucking wrong. So I still want to have a dust-up. And then Sefdog gives him the stabs. And it's interesting because while Barrett was fully willing to, I think even after the conversation or like Aerith being like, Barrett, don't. He's still willing to ice the president if he has to, but Sephiroth stabs him and he's just like, you motherfucker. And he goes to challenge Sephiroth and gets stabbed for his trouble.
I said, like, it's definitely part of Barrett's, like, I said, like, Barrett has, like, again, Barrett gets,
Gosh,
like,
I can't wait I wonder if that'll be playable or that'll just be a flashback movie. Like, we do not fully dive into Barrett's backstory in this.
Yeah, well, we don't really see it into Gold Saucer anyway.
Yeah, but like they allude to it a lot about why he's so upset at Shinra. Like he understands that they will fuck people over for no reason.
Yeah.
So that's a really great scene where the president gets some final singers before he just gets snibbity snapped.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rufus shows up and he's just like,
check out my coat. I am super handsome.
They did a remix. It's weird. I like his actual dub voice, but I can't help but picture him in the voice that TFS's Machina Bridge gave him, where he has a slightly refined southern accent. I'm just
I can totally see it.
That's just kind of how Rufus is in my head. Is just that slightly classiness. Which after he loses his fight, he just slips back and just grabs his helicopter to be like, Shinra's always on the rise. Or the fact that he's fucking throwing gil coins to do his special attacks like a boss. Yeah, he's got a lot of belts and straps now, but I love it. It's great. And I'm actually really hoping, especially after all the setup we gave the president, that because Rufus is a very interesting character. In the original Final Fantasy VII, he has a speech about ruling through fear and intimidation rather than bread and circuses, but that's not different than how his old man runs things already, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see how they handle his new management style, and hopefully he stays as a recurring character. Because he kind of becomes a good guy in Advent Children and Dirge, kind of. Like, at the very least, he does almost the, like, blue umbrella shit from Resident Evil 7, where he's like, okay, Shinra was bad, we did a lot of bad things, but we'll try and be better. We'll try and unfuck some shit.
Maybe he just switches from the fucking current board's obsession with what was it? What they call it? Neo Midgar?
Neo Midgar. Yeah, in the Promised Land.
Yeah.
We'll see. I hope they do his character pretty good in this, because he's a lot of fun, and I hope that maybe we fight him again. But I hope that they take this opportunity to flesh him out. Because like that was one of those things that bugged me. It's like, you guys are talking about going to this Promised Land, but how the fuck are you going to get there if you destroy all your current infrastructure? Well, and that's the president's thing. The president's arguably really short-sighted, where he's just like, yeah, no, fuck it. We're just gonna leave Midgar. We can blow up a plate. Fuck it. And Reeve is just like, dude, you can't do that. I'm urban planning. No, that's bad. Well, we need to rebuild. It's like these areas have places that we need. And he's like, no, Promised Land. And he's like, no, dude, we're gonna reactivate Operation Neo Midgar. And honestly, I think that's kind of why it's interesting to see the kind of talk with, like, say, Palmer and Reeve, because Palmer's almost in the same spot that Reeve gets put in, because Palmer's division hasn't done shit in years. Ever since their rocket failed. That's going to be a really interesting segment. Fancy. I hope one of Sid's skills is just to throw dynamite. But, like, it's going to be really interesting to see a lot of the Shinra characters, because they give them a lot of attention, and they should, because they're a much more human antagonist than Sephiroth is. They do a little bit where Aerith's like, you guys can hear that, right? The crying of the planet? He doesn't. They try to call out to him, but he just doesn't listen. Like, they kind of explain why Sephiroth is a fuckboy, and man, he's just brutal to Cloud all the time. But you really don't want to understand what he's after other than recovering dear old mama. God damn, though, that Genova fight. Oh, that's so sick. And I hope they keep that energy. Like, I want to see that sort of fight again in, like, the second game or whatever inside the boat. Because that would go really well. We fight Genova, like, several times. Because I remember the next fight is, on the boat. The first time is the boat to Costa del Sol. Yeah. There's, like, 3 parts of her. You fight, like, arm, legs, and then the final bit is you fight her torso in the crater. Maybe at one point you'll fight, like, Genova Complete or something. By the way, Complete is in... I think that was actually the name of the final Genova. Or was that the name of a music track? I don't know. I love what they did with the fight, not just the music, but, like, that had some really interesting phases and elements and stuff. Mm-hmm. All the boss fights in the last bit of this are really, really good. It's going to be interesting. I bet that people talk about the tank tops, the Triceratops coming out of the tank treads. I bet that's going to be a boss at some point. There's a lot of weird designs. I can't wait. It's probably going to be some psych experiment gone wrong. Probably. But yeah, there's overall, like I said, really like Remake. There's so many good elements, so many good characters. They do a lot with the characters they have. They add new characters, they flesh out. There's a little bit of padding and a little bit of filler, but I think that's to be expected because they are turning Midgar into a whole game, and it flows really well, and I like it. A lot of good music bits, a lot of good elements. Very interested to see the time frame and when they do more, and what segments it's going to cover. Like I said, I really hope that the next game starts with Calm and the flashback to Nibelheim. Like to explain who Sephiroth is and why we're fighting him.
I think, like, honestly, again, I think I said this one. I think the flashback would be a good tutorial section.
Yeah, I agree. That I hope that is where it starts, and that is okay, here's how you get back into the swing of things. You've got a pre-built cloud. You've got AI partner Sephiroth, or possibly even controllable Sephiroth. I don't know.
Also, be a good idea for them to incorporate any new systems that they might be wanting to try out.
Right. If they change how AI works or they change up some of the mechanics, that would be good to work on. And I hope there is a save importing feature so I can carry over some of my shit or something. I don't know.
I don't know. Like,
we'll see. Like, on the one hand, I'm going to miss all my materia, but on the other hand, they could just as easily dole it back out to you. Like, start everybody off with a couple of basic materias and then dole all the weird shit out to you in a balanced format. I don't know. We'll see what they do, and we'll see how they execute it. They could do a lot of different things a lot of different ways.
Because I don't know how that would actually work with, like, game balance. Like, because, like, for example, if you carry over all the weapons, well, all the weapons have unique abilities and whatnot. Do you want to give, like, new players? You want to, like,
start players with all their same skills? I don't know. That could lead to skill bloat.
Yep.
We'll have to see what they do. Because, like, on the one hand, it could be a bitch to relearn everything, but also I beat the game without learning literally everything, too. So, I don't know. We'll see what they do. They do have to introduce new mechanics, because I do believe that Red 13 will be fully playable right from the start, because there'll be no excuse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, because that's pretty soon to when they introduce Yuffie, I wonder if they'll make it so you can have the even team numbers, because there's 5 of you right now.
I'm trying to remember. I think you can get Yuffie as soon as you get into the Fort Condor area?
Yes, it's as soon as you get through the Mithril Mines, she can be in that forest. So I'm wondering if we might not work that in. And I think, especially after seeing the way that all of Remake is organized, we could do open world stuff. I bet we're not gonna. Like, I bet it's going to be there will be fast travel, but it's going to be a chapter-based system, and there will be cutoff points where you can't return. Like, if you go on the ship to Junon, you cannot come back to Junon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be able to, like, for shops and things, and side quests, you'll be able to, to hitch a ride on a chocobo or something and fast travel to, like, the Chocobo Farm, or Calm, or Fort Condor. And they'll probably find a way to work all of those. Even if they are side stories, they'll be used to flesh out characters, like the same way the Jesse chapter was, right? That wasn't necessary, but it built a lot of stuff.
That's probably what they're going to do. They're probably going to use the Chocobo Farm as a way for you to, like, make it to your next target without, like, crossing an entire continent on fucking foot.
Mm-hmm.
They might move that up a bit then. Like,
well, that's right after Calm, because you have to you need a Chocobo to cross the swamp, because then you got to fight Midgar Zalam. Or maybe they won't make it so you can't beat Midgar Zalam right away, and we have a fucking Midgar Zalam boss fight. Who knows?
That'd be great.
That'd be crazy. But yeah, like, there are a lot of, and the Mithril Mines are like a transitory segment. That would be a whole, or chapter, or like back half of a chapter, where you meet the Turks. Maybe you fight Elena there, because that'll be her introduction, because she's literally not in this. Turks are really interesting, by the way, too. I love them a lot, but they're really interesting.
Yeah, like, I am glad that we got to cut back to, like, Reno and fucking,
Reno and Rude, with Reno beat the shit and just be like, I don't feel great, and Sung is just like, think about it this way, and they're like, I don't, though. And he's like, okay, look at another. I actually kind of like what they're doing with Sung, that he's, like, kind of spiritual or religious. Like, that's a really interesting interpretation. And it humanizes them a lot, because, like, on the one hand, man, they killed a shitload of people by pushing the button. But Sung also makes a point. If you didn't push that button, they would have sent somebody else. We're the Turks. We do the job so people don't have to. And even then, Reno and Rude are still like, I still don't feel great, boss. And I love that Sung is just like, Reno, you should get some fucking R&R, dude. Which is alluded to because in the Wutai segment later, the optional one, they're on vacation. Ooh, interesting. I hope they explore that more. Ooh, that last bit's really interesting, because Sung doesn't really see Cloud, does he?
Not for...
No, I don't think you don't think he sees all of the party face to face until Mithril Mines, which is if you don't know what the Mithril Mines is, that's the cave that's between the swamp and Fort Condor. That's gonna be really interesting if that scene plays out, because that has all the Turks kind of like stop and be like, hey, you guys following Sephiroth? We're following Sephiroth too. We're gonna catch him first. Neener, bye.
Smoke bomb.
That's gonna be really interesting. Much like I can't wait until Battlegrounds comes out, I can't wait until more Final Fantasy VII comes out, right? Like, there's so much interesting stuff they could do with the way they fleshed out these characters in this world. I want to see it. Like, fuck, dude, they're probably gonna make they'll make all of Nibelheim, but they're probably gonna make that and the Shinra Manor a whole thing. Like, I bet the Lost Number won't be an optional boss again.
Yeah, again. Well, that's how, like, again, that's
yeah, I think we've both said this. Optional content will probably no longer be optional, and they'll just put weird monsters and one-off bosses out there as real bosses now. Because God,
the Shinra Manor wasn't like necessarily optional. It was getting Vincent that was.
No, yeah, getting Vincent is optional, and that includes an optional boss fight, and also gives you the Odin materia.
Yeah, to open up the safe.
Yeah, which was a bitch and a half. It was a very finicky mechanic. But Vincent. Oh, but from just one from a gameplay, but two from a character design. That's going to be so interesting. Like, how much Vincent shit are they going to leave in? Because Vinny Boy was a very popular secondary character, probably because he was optional, and he's really related to a lot of meta plot shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at the bare minimum, without even going into Dirge, right? Without even going into Deep Ground and the fact that Chaos is actually a weapon in all caps and all that stuff. Vincent's relationship as a Turk with Lucrezia, who is Sephiroth's mom, with Hojo. By the way, just to spell it out, just to throw it out there, that's the relationship. Hojo is Sephiroth's real dad. Lucrezia used to be with Vincent, but then got with Hojo and is Sephiroth's real mom. Sephiroth was exposed to Genova cells in the womb. That's why he's a freak show. Like, how much of that shit are we gonna do and cover? Also, Vincent's gonna be really, really interesting to do. As a ranged character, he'll be pretty fun. I think. Yeah, Vincent's dad was Lucrezia's mentor.
Like, I'm hoping we get to, like, smack some people with that fucking claw gauntlet, though. Not gonna lie.
That would probably be a good, much like how Barrett has a couple of melee abilities. They'll probably give Vincent a couple of melee attacks, too. And I also expect what they'll do is that they'll only do it, because he only has 4 limit breaks anyway, they'll only do his transformations as limit break modes, which will be Vincent freaks out and does weird stuff. You know, he turns into a werewolf man and goes fucking apeshit. Mm-hmm. And then his final one is he turns into chaos. Like, I'm very curious if they will actually work in that meta plot, because it's explained in Dirge of Cerberus that chaos is a weapon. God, the weapons in this engine too.
I'm hoping, like, the weapons will be some giant multi-stage phase bullshit as well.
They will probably be like the fight with the giant Arbiter.
Yeah. Like...
So, yeah.
Like, Lucky never really got too big into fighting elements. He only did, like, the fucking, like, mandatory ones, you know, Diamond Weapon.
Mm-hmm. That's because Ruby and Emerald Weapon are really fucking hard.
Yeah, they are. And
Diamond and Ultima.
Yeah.
Sapphire Weapon gets jobbed at Junon. Mm-hmm. And then Emerald and Ruby are the optional ones. And then there's then in they introduce more all the time. There's in Dirge there's Chaos Weapon and Omega Weapon.
Yep.
And then there's some more in some of the other compilations, because theoretically the plan is just crapping out weapons all the time to tell these annoying humans to fuck off. Or possibly to kick the shit out of Genova. I don't know.
I want to.
They showed some clips of the City of the Ancients. That's going to be a really trippy segment, I think. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a lot of really cool shit. That was a question I actually wanted to ask you earlier, Lucky. Now that we've both beat it all, where do you think the second game of this is going to stop? Like, no matter what, it will start in calm, probably. We just don't know what that content will be. Where do you think they'll end it? Like, where do you think the climax is?
Well, Lucky has to, like I said, Lucky has to remember his fucking Final Fantasy VII.
It's true. It's a little difficult.
Let's see. So
I'm pretty sure we'll go past Junon.
Yeah,
that's the first continent. We'll
probably go past Cosmo Canyon.
That would be a really good one. Yeah, that would be a lot of big build up for Red 13. God, that's another leitmotif they didn't do. That's gonna fucking slay me when they play Greatest Warrior, because you know they're gonna do a heart-rending rendition But also, that's going to be a really interesting fight segment.
Oh man, honestly, I need to look up like the FF7 like order of events.
Yeah, I think we'll probably get as far as I think recruiting everybody. Maybe. Like we'll do Gold Saucer and get Kate Sith. We'll do Rocket Town maybe and get Sid. I think some people have said that maybe it will go as far as the Temple of the Ancients. That could be a big finish.
I like Temple of the Ancients seems about right to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe we'll go like who knows, maybe we'll go as far as fucking Cloud's breakdown. Maybe.
Ooh boy, if we go all the way to North Crater, that would be assuming the plot threads mostly follow the original game.
Well, as I said, like I think like again, because once we get into open world, I think they'll streamline it, so maybe we'll be on a more direct path. Side quests will most likely be inside areas and whatnot.
Yeah, like I'm imagining, especially with the chapter system, like Calm and flashbacks will be one chapter. There may be side quests in Calm. Then it'll be, okay, we got to chase down Sephiroth. So you got to like go to the Chocobo farm or go to the swamp and then go through the mines. That could be all one chapter with a couple of boss fights. Fort Condor will probably be like a mandatory segment. And then Junon will be a segment. And then, all that stuff. And depending on how much they want to stress out, like they could probably turn Junon into a couple of chapters. Like, you got a thing?
Oh, wait, nope. I keep finding full timelines. I'm looking for the events of literally just the game.
It's hard.
Let's see here. Let's try storyline. Let's see here. Because people don't understand, like, you might not remember, but you can actually get to these things, like, fairly quickly.
You can speed run the game a little bit.
Yeah, like, you leave, you get to Calm, then you go to the Mithril Mines, then, let's see, it's Chocobo Farm, Juno, Costa del Sol, and then...
Keeping in mind that especially, like, Costa del Sol is fucking nothing in the actual game.
Yeah.
I'm hoping maybe they turn that into a chapter of just, like, everybody's like, let's take a break. Probably because we fought a piece of Genova and it was really freaky. So, after Costa del Sol, it should be the Corel Mountains. Ooh, my Discord's like... Sorry, my Discord also was, like, bobbing up and down.
Oh, I think I found it. Let's see here. 66. Main floor, clone, cargo... Okay, cargo ship. Alright. Okay. Once they leave, they go to the nearby Chocobo farm, go to Mithril Mines, then they travel to Junon, rescue a girl, go on the ship, Costa del Sol... Oh, that's right. After Costa del Sol, you go to Gold Saucer.
Yeah, but you go to Gold Saucer through the Coral Mountains.
Let's see here. Yeah, ends up in North Coral. Yeah. Meet Hojo on vacation. Goes into Mount Coral, North Coral, Gold Saucer. Oh yeah, that's when you got actually Gold Saucer is probably going to be fairly robust now that
Gold Saucer is probably going to be the equivalent of the Wall Market chapter.
Yeah. Let's see. Then they get the buggy. Then do you go to Gananga? Gananga goes to Cosmo Canyon. Yeah, see, Cosmo Canyon's a good point, but like, no, that's...
I don't think that's enough of a... So this is something I'm noticing as we're talking about this. Mm-hmm. A lot of these waypoints are basically like character sub-arcs.
Yeah.
Like, when you go through Coral Mountains and then through Coral Town at the base of it, that's all Barrett stuff. When you go to Cosmo Canyon, that's all Red 13 stuff. When you go back to Nibelheim, that's Cloud and Tifa stuff. Gaganga is Aerith stuff.
Yeah, like, after Cosmo Canyon, it's Nibelheim. You go through Nebo Mountains to Rocket Town.
And I want to predict that we will at least get through Rocket Town. Like, I think they want to get the whole band together in the next game.
Alright, yeah, and then after Rocket Town is optional Wutai. And then Temple of the Ancients. Let's see here. Then you go back to Gold Saucer.
Then you go to Fossil Town and the City of the Ancients and stuff. Is it called Fossil Town?
Yeah, actually, I'm thinking Temple of the Ancients.
I think would be the appropriate big climax. That would mean you have all the party members, and it's a big point. We'll have to see, because they can... Well, and also they can make the game longer, too. This might be more
I was
60
thinking,
hours.
for some reason, I kept thinking that Cloud's full character breakdown was at Temple of the Ancients, and I don't know why.
No, that's only a little bit. That's not...
Yeah.
The full breakdown isn't until... North
But no, I was thinking Temple of the Ancients, where Cloud has kinda a breakdown. No, I don't think they're gonna have to cuddle. Like I said, I just went like bullet by bullet of everything is. I think they can fit that all in one game.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't know why people are thinking this is very long, because it's not. There's a lot of walking. There's a little bit of fighting. And there will be side quests and stuff to flesh this out. Like I'm expecting that I don't know if Junon would be a hub area, but I expect Gold Saucer definitely would be a wall market style hub, right?
Yeah, because Temple of the Ancients when air is fucking out.
Yeah. Like I said, I think they want to get. They probably want to get the whole band back together. So you'll probably have an encounter with Yuffie. And Lucky did not list Fort Condor, but I expect there will be a. There may or may not. They may just leave Fort Condor to when it matters with the huge materia, but there could be a Fort Condor segment.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm expecting this will be pretty actually focused. So it'll be like one chapter will be calm in the flashbacks and stuff. There'll be one chapter for Mithril Mines and the swamp and all that stuff. Junon will probably be a couple of chapters because there's lower and upper Junon and stuff.
Like, people, like, forget, like, a lot of time was eaten up by running around grinding in giant-ass fucking dungeons that made no goddamn sense.
Mm-hmm.
They'd streamline all that.
Like, even though we mentioned you'll go up into the Coral Mountains, that's a lot of really long screens for no purpose. That'll probably be streamlined and flow a lot quicker. Honestly, there's a decent amount of story, but the thing that makes the game slow is when there's fighting. This is also true in tabletop games. And a lot of these segments don't have bosses or anything, so I don't think they'll be super climactic like whole chapters, right? Like, arguably, the whole thing through Junon the first time, you get disguised as a Shinra guy, that'll be a whole chapter, blah, 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 that ends on the boat, and then you fight Genoa. Okay, that's probably a chapter. Costa del Sol? There's nothing there. There's a couple of, like, talking to people and stuff. You then immediately fuck off to the mountains. They'll probably actually expand a lot of these sectors to make more sense with more pacing. But like I said, I'm assuming that there will be some kind of fast travel system. There won't be an open world, and it'll just be like, let's go to our next destination. And I believe the way that the Chocobo carriage worked was you couldn't go to places you hadn't been before, right?
Or you have to find the lost.
Or you have to find the signs. You have to find the lost Chocobos, and you gotta have the right signs. I think that's what they're gonna do. Is just like it'll be like you go to a new town, you go to Costa del Sol, and be like, okay, where's the next place? Like you'll hear from somebody saying Sephiroth's heading towards Gold Saucer. Well, how do we get to Gold Saucer from here? And then Barrett will turn away from the camera and be like, we gotta go through North Coral. Dun dun dun. And then you'll leave and get in the mountains. Yeah, like I said, I think that they'll be. One, because this sounds almost very episodic and like character-focused vignettes. But two, I think that just because of the gameplay stuff, they'll probably want to get all the player characters in.
Yeah.
All the party members. Like, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see them add Red fully, and then that's Yuffie, Vincent, and Sid, and Kate says should be the first time they do the stuff. Well, here is the thing that unless they redesign, like I expect Gold Saucer will be, like I said, will be a big hub area, right? That'll be like the wall market. That'll have a lot of different levels and a lot of places you can go. But if you think about it, a lot of those areas in 7 aren't that open. Costa del Sol is like 3 screens. Like they will probably expand a lot of. I'll have to see. Like just plot bullet points. I think they could get all the way to a climax at Temple of the Ancients. I think they could do that.
I think so.
Will they? I don't know. That's why I say at minimum I want them to go as far as Rocket Town because I want them to get the whole party members. But they're like 7 Remake in Midgar isn't that open. There's a decent amount of interconnectivity. You can wander through all the different slums. There are chapters which are mostly made up of side quests that are locational, and I think they'll do that too. Just they'll do it at different points and. The story, once you get out of Midgar, is a lot more linear. You are literally going point to point looking for Sephiroth.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think they will make a lot of optional segments non-optional. 1, to keep the plot consistent, and 2, to actually use all the content. Now the question is, are they actually going to keep all the shit the same, or will they fuck stuff up? I don't know. Yes, Junon will probably be decently sized, but I expect that if they follow the plot as they did in the original, you aren't going to be able to explore too much of Junon because you're going to be undercover. Like I said, I'm imagining that's going to be a whole chapter is like Junon will probably be 2 chapters. I think it's going to be 4. It's going to probably be 4. Because I think the issue is if you don't make it all the way to the Temple of the Ancients, that means that Temple of the Ancients is going to be like, what, your Act 1 of a future game? Your Act 2? Ooh, that could be pretty spicy.
Mm-hmm. And
I don't know. I think in general, having played the game, I trust them to understand the appropriate pacing for their dev cycle and for their writing, right? Like, even though we mentioned they're probably going to change some shit around, they're going to have to expand some things, just like they did in the first episode. It's going to be interesting. And I do think these are definitely full-blown games. Like, 7 Remake 1 is about 40 hours, start to finish, just doing the normal plot, not doing... Well, and I did all the side quests too, but, like, I didn't double back to the extra bonus New Game Plus content or play in hard mode, right? Like, there's probably a full 80 hours of gameplay in that top to bottom.
This also doesn't take into account whatever weird story changes they might fucking do.
Right. We don't know. There might be some swerves. Like, we might go to Costa del Sol, and then Hojo tries to, like, kidnap us or something, and we do a whole different thing. I'm not expecting a 1-2-1. I just think in general, because then you would be wasting potential set pieces and wasting potential content to skip any of the individual, like, towns. I expect we probably won't skip many locations. Just the plot that we go places might be different. Like, fuck, they could turn Costa del Sol into a whole chapter, into a whole city. Who the fuck knows? I'll be interested. I want to see it.
Like I said, they might bring in, like, here's the thing, because, like, as I said, they brought in a lot of side characters in from, other things into the remake. And who knows, maybe they'll continue doing that, of just adding more to Flavor Town, if you would.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I said I wanted. I wanted them to actually take this opportunity to, like, thread back in all this compilation bullshit. Some of which is good, some of which is still, like Kyrie and Leslie, I'm still just like, I guess. Whatever. I never read that book.
The kids are alright, but I never knew the kids in the first place.
Yeah, okay, fine, whatever. Yeah, that wasn't one of the ones I read. I read a couple of them.
Girlfriend got sent to, like, Costa del Sol or something? I feel like Costa del Sol got brought up somewhere.
A couple of times.
Yeah.
Maybe Don Corneo said he was going to run away there. I don't know. It happens. There's also the music. Yeah, I still don't know. I still don't know for sure what Genesis is. I never actually got the Blade Crisis core. PSP! I'll find a good working emulator. There's a lot of weird shit. Well, and honestly, I think the point of Remake is to be like, kind of like what Disney said they would do with Star Wars, but in a good way. That's right, I'll pop some shots. I think the point of the ending is to us, the audience. The meta text is to be like, okay, we've broken the canon. We can do new stuff, but also that means we can change shit maybe you didn't like. Like, we can bring together compilation stuff, but also we can edit out the parts that people don't generally like and that people think are weird.
Ooh, actually, no. We might not end at fucking. Hang on 1 second.
He's looking at stuff.
We might end at, like, maybe not necessarily fucking Temple of Ancients. We might end at Forgotten Capital.
Ooh, gosh, I don't know.
Because it's not that much further.
No, it's a really quick transition.
Yeah,
it's you get the black materia, you lose the black materia. Aerith's just like, yo, Cloud, something's up with you. Anyway, I'm gonna go by. And then she goes by, and it's just like...
Then you go, let's see here, Bone Village, Sleeping Forest.
All of which, by the way, are super... Like, Bone Village is a little bit of a something, because there's a mini-game there, but it wouldn't be... And then Sleeping Forest, and then you...
Enter the forest in Coral Valley, Forgotten City, yeah, and then... Yeah.
Well, okay, it's not that bad in Dirge, because he's not in Dirge hardly at all. He's in, like, the super secret ending post-credits. It's mostly nothing. I say this as a Dirge apologist. It's like one scene. However, it is actually quite weird, but it doesn't really matter. They were, for a certain point when Crisis Core and Dirge came out, they were going in a direction that I think they forgot about because people didn't like it. And I expect, like I said, I think the meta context of Remake is that, hey, remember the direction we went in before? We're probably going in some different stuff. We're doing some different things. Honestly, I'm pretty sure that the Sviets aren't going to show up. Like, the deep ground shit and Omega Weapon and Hojo, Hojo turning plugging his brain into a computer only happens at the climax anyway. So I don't think they'll do any of that stuff. They'll probably just continue to make it a cameo that, like, oh yeah, Shinra has secret weapons project everywhere. They're freaky and weird. Fuck, dude,
but, like, looking at it,
I still don't know what deep ground is actually for.
Because, like, honestly, I think it would, like, end at Forgotten Capital. Because, do you want your Act 1 Aerith getting maybe stabbed?
No, but they could do some other stuff in there. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what they do.
Yeah.
And we probably won't know for sure until the game gets close to coming out, because we'll have to see what's in the trailers.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, she might not even get stabbed. We don't know, but, like, going as the timeline as we understand. Like I said, it's like, there's no real point in theory crafting, because we literally don't fucking know. But,
the journey is unknown.
Yeah. So we have to use basically the information we have and make a good guess without getting completely wild about it. And
there's a lot of ambiguity.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if Tifa dies, I'm gonna be fucking done.
I will be a little mad. People don't have to die. That's the thing. People got that is a rule. You got to be careful with character deaths. If characters die, that's the end of their potential, and it can feel really forced. And especially that early, that's way too early. Tifa's got a shitload of resolution, and don't be like, "Oh, Aerith can take over," because now Zack's alive too. So there's a big shipping clusterfuck. Never mind that Tifa and Aerith are fucking adorable together. Also,
I ship them. I'm not gonna lie.
But romantically, we're turning into a relationship clusterfuck really fast. But no, like, yeah, I wouldn't go for Tifa dying because she's got a lot of shit left to do as a character.
Like her fucking scene of sitting outside Midgard while Diamond Weapon's just all like, "I'll give you guys some space."
Yeah, or Under the High Wind, helping Cloud recover from his horrible brain breaking. Also, speaking of the way they handle characters, I bet that she and Scarlet will have a full-blown boss fight. In the original game, it's just a, quite frankly, really cliched slap fight, but no, this will probably be they're actually going to have a fucking boss fight on the top of the cannon, the Sister Ray.
Pretty fucking awesome.
And Scarlet will turn out to know ninja moves or some shit.
I bet she'll use a whip.
She probably uses a whip. She probably uses a whip and lots of materia and shit. Shoots lasers for some reason. Maybe she has a laser whip. Who knows?
And she has had a weapon development.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm picturing. After seeing what they did with the Rufus fight, I'm just like, holy shit. Tifa has a kind of fight with Scarlet way later. They could make that a full-blown thing, and it would fit perfectly.
I wonder what music they'd use for that. I'm trying to remember.
A subtle remix, probably.
Probably.
There are several Junon themes. There's a lot of really good music, they've probably only used maybe like 50% of the OST. At least outright. Like, there's a lot of remixes in the music disc, which I appreciate. That fucking heavy metal cover of Those Who Fight, the boss music. But there are a lot of locational themes that aren't outright used, like Cosmo Kane's Gonna Kill Me. There's like 3 or 4 themes there. Something I noticed, by the way, is that we also remix the characters' leitmotifs a lot. Mm-hmm. Like, Aerith's theme gets played a lot, but it gets played in different instruments. I actually found out a jokey version plays if you get the worst version of her dress.
Oh, really?
Yes. Like there's a funny like wah wah wah, because it's a very plain shitty dress, and she's mad about it too. She is upset she doesn't get to wear a pretty princess dress. I know there's a fucking achievement for getting all the dresses, but I don't think I could do Aerith like that. I really don't think I can. Well, and also you have to deliberately go out of the way to fuck yourself. You have to like do no side quests or anything. I can't do that. Anyway, yeah. It's a little open-ended. But they reuse her leitmotif. I think they play a couple different variations on Tifa's theme as well. They reuse the main theme at a couple of points, and like I said, there's a lot more hints of One Winged Angel in there, though I do appreciate they use those chosen by the planet a lot as Sephiroth's primary leitmotif. You're really good. Again, doubling down. The OST is amazing. It's so phenomenal. Is it straight up Uematsu again? No. Actually, no. There's some guest composers. That's right. They got the guy from fucking Ace Combat to do the Valkyrie boss theme in the Ascension sector. So they've got as they should. They got a lot of different composers working on a lot of different stuff. Like, I know he did some stuff, but I don't think he let's see here. Let me see if I can pull it up here. He didn't do everything, but what did he fucking do? Oh yeah, Masashi Hamatsu and Mitsuo Suzuki also did a lot. Let's see here. Let me see. Let's see. Front Mission. Actually, this guy does a lot of Final Fantasy stuff too. Actually, looking at him. Yeah, no, it looks like from what I've seen, like it looks like it's Uematsu and his team. I do know. Let's see here. Who is Mitsuto Suzuki? What did you work on? He does not have a Wikipedia page. Let's check his IMDb then. Yeah, it looks like he mostly just worked on Final Fantasy VII stuff too. And Toradora for some odd reason. Oh, and the Third Birthday. What? Oh, I'm sorry, dude. Hey, gotta make money. But yeah, so the OST is really good and all that stuff, but there's a lot of I have a lot of hope for the future and a lot of interest in where we're going. You know, it's really good. Can't wait to see more. Okay.
Actually, Devilish. Hang on, I gotta Lucky posted some fucking clips of some bullshit happening in Ghost of Tsushima. I don't know if we're done with Final Fantasy VII talk.
Yeah, and we're at 3 hours and 15, so I think we need to take an intermission if you want to talk about Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, I'll take an intermission, but hang on, let me
videos.
Yeah, hang on here.
Well, I mean, I can pause the recording because I don't know if I want to play the clips while we're rolling the audio.
But yeah, pause because I gotta go empty.
All right. Okay, so Lucky posted some clips he's taking with PS4 Share that he's tweeted.
Mm-hmm.
Check them out on Twitter. I have watched them just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, so the pigs did save me, but Lucky was a little pissed that he was sucking at combat, so he was just swinging wildly and unfortunately hit the pigs. Unfortunately, the pigs either would probably attacked him too, so they only had they chose their fate. Lucky's talking about Ghost of Tsushima right now, which came out let's see here. Yes, technically yesterday. It's weird to think about. I've been playing it a lot. I actually did stream it. I actually did a premiere, well, not a YouTube premiere because that's not actually how that works. But basically, the minute the game went live, Lucky was there streaming it, and it did okay. We actually got 3 subscribers out of it. I was like, oh,
and a couple of people sound like they're interested in seeing more. Maybe. Ow.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Lucky is a selfish man. He did not stop playing. He is still playing it. So by the time next Thursday comes around, I'm not sure where I'll be in the game. Luckily, Lucky is one of those types of people who will just futz around for a fucking hour. Like, I've literally been playing it the majority of this time. We've been recording. I haven't done much. I'm literally filling in the map. Like, oh, I can climb this. Like, just learned something. And just exploring things. Because Ghost of Tsushima, from our good developers at Sucker Punch, which actually I think they're based here in Washington. Not Sunker. What the fuck is Sunker? Actually, but Sucker Punch Games, best known for their Infamous series.
Excuse you. Best known for Sly Cooper, motherfucker.
Fuck you.
Subtle backs and forth. Yes, they also did Infamous though. They're one of Sony's pretty up there, second party developers.
Well, to be fair, I guess it's like fucking Uncharted is to Naughty Dog. But them also doing Crash Bandicoot and fucking Jak and Daxter, I guess. Back in the PS2, yes, fucking Sucker Punch was all about that Sly Cooper, but once we hit PS3, they switched to Infamous, much how like Naughty Dog switched to Uncharted. And Last of Us.
Jak and Sly.
Funny enough, Ratchet and Clank still going. What the fuck? Explain this. Now that I think about it.
Who does Ratchet and Clank? That's a topic for later. Where the episode's already over 3 hours recorded. Ghost of Tsushima.
All right. Ghost of Tsushima. So this game's been out and been known about for a long time. Had a fairly robust development cycle. I'd say. I think it premiered 4 years ago. I want to say 3 or 4 years ago at an E3, and it's finally come out. And boy howdy, this game is pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie. So first off, this game's fucking beautiful. Fucking beautiful. Like, you know how you're talking about Final Fantasy VII's, like, every scene of fucking, a painting, that is this to a fucking T. I can just stop and just be all like, yeah, no, that's a fucking landscape. Oh, that's a landscape painting right there. The things they do at lighting, so, like, fucking the sunlight drifting through trees, the petals drifting on the wind, fucking forest of gold and violet, and it's just like, why is this so pretty? And it is. It's very artistic. So, Ghost of Tsushima, as you guys are saying, is basically It's basically a love letter to Kurosawa fucking films. Even to the point where they actually have a mode where you can play it in black and white grainy films called Kurosawa mode. And it's basically a story about one man's struggle between fighting an almost unstoppable enemy and protecting his fucking code of honor. As we follow one Jin Sakai, a samurai, on the island of Tsushima during one of the Mongol invasions. Now, I'm not sure which one.
Yeah, we're still not sure.
Hang on, let me see if actually I can. Let me try something here real quick because I just thought us a way.
Because there were a couple, and at least in the preset, the pre-pressed stuff, it wasn't ever cleared exactly what date it was set.
Yeah. Well, so the Mongols invaded Japan twice. I feel like I messed up a word there, but I'm not sure which one.
Yep, sounded about right.
Oh, okay. And as I said, it was a bad time. It was a fucking bad time. The Mongol hordes were a fucking goddamn thing. Actually, no. Both of them were blown out by fucking giant storms. It's just that the second one was actually able to make landfall and actually do battle. They were actually able to take the island for a bit. But you follow this guy who tries to stop the Mongol horde with the usual samurai tactics. Let's all just run at them screaming with our swords, and got completely fucking bodied. I mean, completely fucking bodied. It was like a literal like army of thousands. They had like 80 dudes on horses. I'm just all like, I'm no tactician, but
that's also, by the way, true because the Mongols used armor of boiled leather, and the original version of the Japanese swords weren't very good at cutting it. It's why it's actually why they moved to the development of the modern katana.
Yeah,
they needed more geometric shape. They also, I believe, adopted a lot of other little technical things.
Mm-hmm. So the Mongols are invading the island, and Jinzakai, who was saved, needs to where the part I am right now is he needs to go save his uncle, who is the lord at the moment of the area, and he's quickly realizing that with an enemy like this, who may not necessarily act like civilized samurai, maybe doing things the way samurai do is not the best choice. Well, here's I know you're probably trying to be sarcastic, but Devilish says if the Greeks can hold off the fucking Persian horde with 388 is totally doable. But you also have to remember, Thermopylae was because it was in a prime defensive position. It was
also there weren't actually just 300 Spartans. There were a couple thousand other. They probably weren't as cool, but there were some other Athenians and other Greek allies in there too.
Yeah. They had literal they had defensive. They had home ground advantage basically. And here, they don't have home ground advantage. It's like, all right, let's just charge them with our horses. And it's like, let's see how that goes. It did not go as well. So right now, you're going around, where I am at the beginning, Jin has not fully embraced being the ghost, because basically that's one of his allies he meets. He meets a thief named Yuna, who's basically all like, if you don't want to die, you can't just run out there and challenge them all to, single combat, because one, they're just gonna fucking gank you, and two, then they might kill people that they're holding hostage. And Jin's just constantly internally. So he starts doing things that are not so samurai-ish. He stabs people in the back, he throws weapons, he sneaks around, and he's just like, ah. But the fun thing about this game, I realize, is while this is very much a stealth-oriented game, you still can literally just go up and run in the middle of combat and be like, I'm a fucking samurai, fight me, you nerds! One of the mechanics they introduced is called literally standoff, where you walk into an enemy camp, whatever, and you basically challenge one of them to a fucking duel. And they'll usually send out a fighter. And when you first get the ability, you can only, you can maybe insta-kill, one dude, and then they still all get to fight you. But as you level it up, you can, kill, what will happen is, you can cut one dude, but then, two more will run up, and then you'll cut them both down. And when you do it, maybe you can actually scare, the entire fucking camp. I've actually, cleared out a, encampment by doing a standoff. I killed, 2 dudes, and everyone's all like, fuck this guy, I'm out. And I just got the encampment just for free like that. I was like, okay. Or you can go the other way and just sneak around with bow and arrow, kunai, bombs and stuff. You can, shoot, hives to do that, drop fire pots on people. Do all that other nice, lovely stealth stuff. And it's an interesting just between the two. A lot of interesting storytelling goes on in here as, everything is done through, not quests, but tales. A lot of the side quests are called Tales of Tsushima. And, you meet other characters who are not dealing with this invasion in a good way. Let's see, what else do I really expand upon it? Combat is fun. As I said, you're a sword man. You also get a bow. So basically what they do is you have, it's several fighting styles to deal with different enemies. You start off. Let me. I said I'm playing right now, so let me actually pull up. So you have the stone stance, which is like good for dealing with swordsmen. The water stance, good for dealing with shieldmen. Wind stance, good with dealing with spearmen. And then the moon stance, good for dealing with brutes. And those aren't the only enemy types, but like those are the ones you're generally going to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Like I say, there's leader types, there's archers, there's guys who throws bombs. Other stuff. There's guys who literally have fucking birds who eagles will be like, that guy right there. And like I said, it's real fun. It's combat's, how do I want to put this? It's not fucking, it's not Sekiro levels of difficulty. It's pretty basic. Like, you have your dodges, your parries, your counters. Like, if you get hit, like, more than a couple times, you're probably going down. Words.
Well, yeah, and I can even see that in some of those videos you posted where you take a couple licks and then, your screen starts flashing. Ooh, you're gonna die.
Yeah, something I do like is your recovery of faction is your resolve, and you don't have to run to a fucking campfire to recover your resolve. You can recover it through combat, like getting kills, doing parries and stuff. So resolve is not something that you have to hoard. You can use it fairly often, and it will recharge. Like I said, and some people might say it's broken. It's like it depends on what you do it, because, like I said, in your gear you have charms. Like, your gear is not super robust. You get like your swords, which you can upgrade. You get outfits that might, like, the only thing that actually has have stats on it is your armor. And let's see here. You get different armors. Like, if you want to be a guy who just goes up and beats anyone, you just wear the Samurai Clan armor that gives, like, reduces damage, increases your health, and taking damage gives you resolve. There's a special armor called a Tadayori's armor, which is for bow users, which increases knock and reload speed, your concentration time. Concentration time, by the way, is the slow down bow move that all archery things do for some odd reason.
Because aiming is hard.
Aiming is hard. And head stocks restore 25 restore concentration meter. What I'm running around in right now when I'm trying to kill people is Ronin attire. It's kind of your it's your stealth set. It reduces enemy detection speed, increases melee damage, and when you leave grass, people will detect you slower. But funnily enough, what I run around in most of the time is the Traveler's attire, because it lets you attract artifacts with guiding wind. Traveling clears 30% more of the fog of war on the map, and the controller will vibrate within 60 meters of an artifact. I don't know why I set the stats on this one, but whatever. Because let me tell you, this game goes for a interesting. I'm playing in Japanese at the moment, by the way. Someone asked in the chat. Lucky has noticed this game uses a very minimalistic heads-up display, and does not bog down fucking the game with things if it doesn't have to. Like, your guiding marker when you swipe up on the touchpad is wind. Wind literally comes and blows in the direction you need to go. So if you're going in the right direction, the wind will always be at your back. Whenever a secret is nearby, a golden bird will fly around, and you follow it, and it'll lead you to the secret. Let's see here. If you look out on the distance, fires on the horizons, that's usually where enemy camps are. If you look at steam on the horizon, there might be a hot spring nearby, and you'll definitely see it if you just spot the conspicuous red maple. Fox dens are usually yellow trees that have a whole bunch of fireflies around it. And then, that said, when you get to the fox den, you can follow the fox, and the fox will lead you to a shrine that you pray at, and you can slowly upgrade the charm slots you can use. What other ones? Oh yeah, if you see like a circling flocks of like white bird, that means there is probably a place where you can do a haiku. Giant white banners in the winds is a place where you can do bamboo strikes. If you see a mountain that looks like it has a shrine on the top, it's probably a fucking shrine, and you can pray there to get super awesome charms. Like, a lot of the detail is in observing your surroundings and deciding where to go from there, which plays a lot into how fucking beautiful this game is. Is there any ones that I didn't mention off the top of my head? No, not really. So, like, most of the game, you don't actually run around with any, like, heads-up display. It only really comes into place in combat, where you need to see your health, how much resolve you have, and how much of your consumables you have left. Which, works really well, honestly. As I said, it's a game that has a lot of little attention to detail. Like, the fucking face animation is ridiculous. Like, people's eyes twitch, their nostrils flare, they have that, like... What shocks me about this game is it's only 40 gigs. It's only fucking 40 gigs.
Because that thing that came up in our pre-show yesterday, that you were talking about it chugging your fan, and a lot of people were mentioning that it even makes the PS4 Pro make a lot of noise.
Yeah, no, like, when I play this game, like, the fan is just on constantly. So I don't know what Sucker Punched in, but they put a lot of power into a little bit. And I'm wondering if it's because basically, like, loading is also, like, here's another thing, loading is real quick, so I'm wondering if they, like, have literally just have the entire section just loaded at once, and like when you fast travel, it's like, no, we're literally just putting you from here to here. We don't have to load like in a bunch of like a new assets because everything's already loaded at once, and that's probably why the game is just fucking chugging. It's because it's dealing with processing everything at fucking once.
And sometimes it doesn't process everything, as evidenced in one of those videos you did.
Yeah, it was actually kind of hilarious. It was kind of hilarious. Oh, I wonder if they're using. I wonder. There's actually an interesting game technique where this guy just got stabbed. Whoops. Like he wasn't paying as much attention as he should have and just ran into an enemy camp. That's fine. He kills good. There's a technique where to save usually on processing power and whatnot, games will only load what you are currently looking at, but actually now I think about it, that's probably wrong. That's usually more reserved for first person games where you have a most definite field of view. But like as I said, Sucker Punch had to come up with something weird in order to pull this off because it's wild.
Yeah.
Oh, did Zero Dawn do that?
Could make sense. But to describe the video that you posted that I'm talking about, it's got a very funny caption. You should go on Lucky's Twitter to find it. But basically he's wandering around in the woods as you do. He finds a box. He opens the box, and apparently in the box are some naked guys with spears who rapidly get dressed. AKA the I don't know whether it was a trigger like they were supposed to ambush you when you open the box or the game just didn't load them in, but they pop out of nowhere and their textures on their clothes don't load for a second because they're I'm going to presume that it's a mechanic in game where you can like ambush people where they're they're not dressed or something because it's all about stealth and shit. No,
not that I've seen it, but there is a, like when you visit Hot Springs, you get to see some man butt.
Okay, so there are just models of them underdressed, and maybe that forms the basic skeleton on which different outfits or whatever are put on. But so they're underdressed, and then they dress mid-fight, and then they start stabbing you with spears.
Yes, because I was shocked. I was not expecting, like, because usually we're in those encounters, the bandits are already around the box. But Lucky didn't think about that. He was just like, "Oh, a box! I'm gonna go open that." He opens box and somehow just got himself in the middle of the damn combat. And it's just like, and Lucky's just like, I understand why this went this way it did, but yeah.
Why is my mic so low? Ow.
Like, I'm trying to think of things that I don't like about this game, and I'm not coming. Oh wow, I'm actually full up on fucking bamboo. I actually probably go sell some. Let's see here.
That's pretty good. It's definitely your like quote unquote review has definitely got me a little bit more interested in looking at it because I was like, I probably want to get this, but I don't know when I'll get it.
Oh fuck! It's a bear! Shit in the face! Wait, I actually don't. Bears are fucking brutal. They'll knock you down and then they'll fucking throw you. So be careful about that. But like it's a beautiful game. It's fun. I know what I said. I think like the thing that bugs me most is in most sandbox games, usually the map's already exposed. You just usually have to go find the fucking radio tower equivalent to unlock all the, side missions. That's not how they do in Ghost of Tsushima. No, it's all covered in the fog of war. And when you clear settlements and camps, you get a little of exposure. It's not like a whole region. You only get a little bit. If you actually want to uncover things, you have to actually go run around the map through the gray fogs and discover it for yourself. That's why I haven't moved on from this first section, is because Lucky is literally systematically... I can see that,
because it's got... Normally, like you said, you have the rough outline, and then you do the running around part, and then if you pop a watchtower or whatever, that, like, reveals points of interest or unlocks missions or whatever on there.
Yeah.
But this is like you do the first thing first, and that like unlocks the map, and then you wander around in it to fill it out, which is a little. weird.
No. I'll ask that. Do you get a horse? You get a horse like. Here's something I fucking love. You get a horse like in the opening missions. You basically find a samurai horse. It's like, all right, you get these 4 horses. Pick one, and then you get to name it. So Lucky clearly picked the black horse and named it Kage. And it's awesome because throughout the game, Jin actually refers to his horse by name. You'll hear him say like, well, I said Lucky plays in Japanese, so he'll be like Kage Hayaku. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm actually referring to my horse by name. And it's a great horse. Like, there's a lot of great scenes. Like, whenever you beat a mission, a lot of times they'll just bring your horse. They'll bring your horse to you. And sometimes he'll just like walk up behind you and just headbutt you in the back, and you're just like, what the fuck, horse? Or the mission will end and like the horse is laying down and you're sleeping against it. I'm like, this is precious.
Also, yeah, like I gotta be honest, that's one of those things that I would be like, of course you get a fucking horse. You're a samurai. Like you guys might not understand this, but if you're a samurai, the number 1 and number 2 things are have a bow, have a horse. Have a sword is actually number 3.
Yes.
The reason why Ronin and the samurai class are so associated with swords is because that's one of the few things that like are a bit of a pain in the butt to make, and also are if you have an honest to god samurai sword, that's an actual like serious badge of office. Well, they probably use Chuck cavalry tactics, but yeah, like Ronin with a samurai sword or something. It's a symbol of their class because it's a recognizable thing that only samurai types would have or have had, and it's, kind of your livelihood as a sellsword.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta have a sword to sell it.
Man, look, he's doing a standoff real quick. I gotta give the people the cut. Cut me, nerd! But yeah, so, you do get a horse, and you just have a button that calls your horse to you. He's a smart guy. He'll find you wherever you're at. And you can ride around, but Lucky also finds himself, going without the horse unless I'm, like, riding in, like, forest or stuff, because like most Sucker Punch gaming, there is platforming. You will go up and down cliffs. You eventually unlock a grappling hook, so you can go up and down cliffs even fucking more. No, even like I said, there is. Oh, Devilish just posted something. Tsushima loading times intentionally increased. Like, no, like literally the loading times are stupid fucking fast. Apparently, whatever they did has made it so that the game doesn't have to read the disc as much. And I'm guessing that goes for whatever's doing it digitally as well. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I'm guessing there's probably a lot of there's the reason why it chugs is probably like you said. There's a lot of it's rapid, but there's a lot of preloading setup, and then okay, it's done. We don't need to do anything. The processor is just going to do all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, but I guess I should say, Lucky was kind of mad at Amazon because when Lucky originally ordered this game, he had ordered a physical copy because Lucky, he likes physical things. But the fucking August 4th to August 24th thing was not cutting it. Like, he was like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not living this life.
And
so I actually got it digitally.
I'll have to think about whether or not, especially if it's so compact, I want to order it digitally because it's sold out on Amazon right now, too. I still have another couple of games, though, I need to work through, so I don't know if I'll get it in yet.
Honestly, from what it sounds like, I think the game was just actually sold out. They just weren't saying it was, like, but they didn't.
Yeah, no, that happens all the time. Like, not relevant, but I've been looking at, because I have been paying a little bit more attention, but I've been looking at some, the next couple of, like, sets of Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff that comes out. And on Amazon, there are some sellers who are billing that you can buy certain sets already, but it's at, like, normal price, not pre-order, but they're like, won't actually ship until the actual official release date, so I'm like, okay, maybe you've got your inventory early already for stocking, but, like, okay, that's a little weird that, like, you can't lock in a pre-order price. It's just like, yeah, so that's probably what was happening, Lucky, was that it was actually sold out, but they were still taking pre-orders, and then just at a certain point, they couldn't fulfill them yet. Yeah. It'll be back soon. It's a big seller on Amazon. That means Amazon will replace their stock pretty fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, apparently, so it's been getting rave reviews. A lot of 9 out of 10s, a lot of 10 out of 10s. From what I understand, a lot of people don't really necessarily have a lot of nitpicks with the game. I've seen, a few here and there's some complained about the stealth, and Lucky's like, that probably just means you just suck at stealth, or whatever. 1 second, please.
Yeah, that's the, in general, that's the classic problem of just like, well, maybe you're just bad at parts of this game. And obviously that can be hard to find somebody who can handle all this stuff, but it's a thing. Well, Lucky has still stepped off. I am interested in the game. I don't know when I'll pick it up, though, because I have a couple of other stuff, like I need to, talking about our Final Fantasy VII conversation earlier, while there is some stuff I want to go back and do in the post-game stuff, I also should probably try and take an effort to, my schedule clears up, take an effort to dive back into P5R pretty good, and maybe look at some of my other stuff and check out some other gameses that I have, Game's Eyes. But also, we're only a couple of weeks from the Eternal Humans remake dropping too, which is also a little bit cheaper. So I'm probably gonna lock in a pre-order for that one, not too far from now for me, because that's kind of a big deal to me. But I will definitely get Ghost of Tsushima at some point. I've been interested in the game. It's just like I said, I was like, okay, it's coming up. That's cool. I literally have my 2 big releases for earlier in the year that I'm not actually through yet, so I need to just not.
Yeah, actually, like I was looking at, I don't think I'm actually going to probably pick up anything until... Well, I take that back. I got Trails of Cold Steel 4 coming out this October, which is JRPG that has just part of the big Trails series, and I want to get it done because it's the last. But after that is going to be Cyberpunk in November, and after that, I'm not sure. At that point, honestly, I'll probably be thinking PS5.
Yeah, and there might be a couple of games that might be okay to pick up still on the 4, but yeah.
But yeah, Ghost of Tsushima is like, honestly, it's just good. Like, I'm glad Sucker Punch took the time and effort to this, because I was a little worried. Like, people are still not over Last of Us 2 and everything that it did. So I was kind of worried. Like, I don't know, just what's that word? I was just worried that something similar would happen in Ghost of Tsushima. But no, it seems like those fears are unfounded. It's just good fun. I'm gonna become less and less samurai, so I can save more and more people. Because that's definitely a thing going on here of, like, what are you willing to do to, like, protect your home and the people you care about. Mm-hmm. Which is like something that's very on theme with like a samurai and whatnot, not supposed to act in cowardly manner and stuff. But when you're faced with like an unstoppable enemy, what the fuck do? You just lay down and die?
Yeah, sounds like it's got a lot of classic good sorry.
According to some people, yes, you should.
Got a lot of classic samurai themes, which I should be expected since I explicitly referenced Kurosawa.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
But I really don't have anything else to talk about that. Maybe when I get more throughout the game, I can expound on the first, because I'm still in the technically, I'm still in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm in the first part, but as I said, Lucky's just fucking around like so goddamn much. I'm pretty sure people have beaten the game already, and Lucky's just all like, wee.
Those people are probably cruise controlling it though, speed threading, because that's always an issue with an open world game. Usually, like, we had this debate with about Fallout 3 and Throwback, because some people were bamboozled by some choices, and I was like, well, part of it's probably, like, part of the reason why people didn't like it was because you can't go back and do the rest of the game, so it ends, and you can blitz through the main story in, like, 4 to 6 hours. And a lot of open world type games, whether they're RPGs or not, have that issue of where, like, well, if you really knuckle down, you can just eat up the main story in a relatively short slice of the actual gameplay. But yeah, okay. Alright, so you're done with Ghost of Tsushima. I think we hit all the main stuff we wanted to do, which is good.
Well, the only thing I have really to talk about is I started Tales of Crestoria.
Oh, yeah, I can talk about that.
Yeah,
are you okay pocketing it? There's only one more brief thing I want to mention.
I can pocket it. Like, I can totally pocket it.
Okay. Well, that's good. I'll just briefly mention this topic, because who knows, maybe we'll pick it up another time, because maybe you know. But since I was in a Dresden Files mood, I did actually open up and check out my digital copy of the Dresden Files cooperative card game. Remind me, did you actually pick it up, Lucky, when it was on sale?
I did not.
Nobody listened to me.
I'm sorry.
Sad. I think it has remote play. I'd have to figure it out. That's okay. Maybe I'll stream it sometime for people. Or not. I don't know. But I actually played it. It's, it's pretty simple to pick up, and it plays very fast. It's interesting to pick up. I won't go into the whole thing, like, you can look up tutorials and stuff, but it was interesting to actually pick up, and I've played a little bit of Solitaire. And yeah, it explicitly has Solitaire mode and other stuff. And I would be interested in figuring out more and maybe playing with some people. I will say there are because it's got The number of cases you can unlock go up to Ghost Story, maybe even beyond.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of expansions and stuff. It might even go as far as like Cold Day Skin Game. I'd have to double check.
Lucky has not watched ReZero yet. He has watched some things, but that was not one of them.
But the only thing I would say is because the playable cases and playable characters go up pretty deep. And I don't have everything. I bought the game with the basic bitch expansion packs. So I don't have all the latest cases and stuff. But there's some interface spoilers in there. There's certain characters or variations on characters which are very spoilery, so I would have to be careful about who we played it with and who was watching us play it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was just something I wanted to throw out, is that I did actually try it. I talked about not trying it for a while, and I found it to be a pretty quick play. Solitaire's actually pretty simple. Like, I'm playing on the easier difficulty, but that actually lets me make decisions. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a game that has enough room to be super deep, but I also haven't tried to replay a lot of the same books or cases, you know? Mm-hmm. So I don't know how different they get, because the thing about playing something that's in a fully digital version is that it's even more so than TTS. It's like completely scripted, so I don't actually see the components. I just see the end result. So I don't know how replayability works. But it plays pretty fast, and Solitaire actually seems pretty interesting because you get to see all the players' cards and make all the decisions yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas playing with actual people, one, you're not actually explicitly allowed. Like, the game doesn't let you physically look at the other player's hands. You can communicate what you got, but you're not supposed to, like, literally look in their hand, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So there's less complete information, and then there's obviously multiple brains working on problems. But also, sometimes you might get stubborn, or you might lose track of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just by yourself. So yeah, that's it. That's just a little food for thought. I like the game. It's a pretty quick play. It's on theme. Got some art. Got some funny, titles for cards and stuff. But also, it's something I'd have to be very careful about how we play with people, because, spoilers.
Spoilers!
Okay. Alright, Axe, calm down. I like the Dresden Files RPG, but listen, okay? I like games. I'm not made of infinite game time. There are a lot of games. There's only so much me. Actually, read the fucking RPG before you're hitting me up to, like, play it. Because that's the thing Omega hates the most. If you didn't read the fucking rulebook. This sounds cool. I want to do it. Do you know how to do anything? Fuck no. Read. They wrote a book. It's good.
Information. Omega's not a lecturer. What are you doing?
No, Axe is just trying to goad me into explaining stuff because that's easier. But I probably won't explain it to how he can use it anyway. So I'm just not going to bother. Read. Yes, it's absolutely got digital. Everybody does that except Star Wars. Wait, and maybe D&D. They got really butthurt somewhere in the 4E era that supposedly piracy was why they were losing all their money, not because they had a direct competitor in the form of Pathfinder and the fact that they drastically changed their rule sets, which might have upset some of their previous player base. Definitely no other reason for why they might have lost market share. So I don't know. Wizards might still be mad about that.
Wizards!
Star Wars is just because of archaic licensing. They literally can't put out PDFs because those are quote-unquote electronic games. Or games in an electronic format, which means that EA currently has the exclusive license to that, so so the only thing to do is to maybe mention some general gacha stuff. We know you like that. I don't really have too much to mention, though. I occasionally do Arknights.
You did get Reed, though, didn't you?
I did, in one temple. It was good.
Heck!
It was good for once.
I'm so mad.
Usually these banners are quite sassy to me.
Actually, I know I lied. I can't be mad. Because I literally did a 10 pool. Well, I didn't do a 10 pool. I had 10 permits, and I'm like, alright, I'll just use these fucking 10.
You did 10 permits and spend them one by one.
Yeah. And I got a fucking another exercise, and a Mosthema, and the Broca. But no Reed. I'm just all like, I literally can't be mad at this.
Arknights is big on the whole can't be mad thing. Like, it's very sassy sometimes. I did get Reed. I haven't had a chance to use her yet. I haven't played much besides dailies and other stuff yet. I need to do more stuff to get my fucking Prime coins back up, but I'm wondering when there'll be another event in-game, because honestly, I like events better because I'm at the point in the story where for a lot of this stuff, I usually feel like I need to double-check a guide. Like, doing expert mode on some of the older maps, but I'm running out of those. Like, that still I can usually remember enough of the gimmicks, but new shit is usually just like, okay, after the first 5 seconds, I'm like, all right, so I could sit here for literally a couple of hours until I get this right, or I could look up a general idea, and that will narrow this down to maybe like 10 minutes, because I never do exactly what a guide says, but usually they give me enough of a ballpark to be like, okay, so how I'll do this is this and that and the other thing. So that's difficult to do at different times with stuff, you know. But I haven't been super into Azure Lane. Still can't find whatever those ketchup EXPs are if they exist. The ketchup option doesn't give you EXPs. It just gives you blueprints.
I mean, it gives you blueprints, yeah.
I'd love it, but they're not really. They're doing a rerun right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even really care.
Steel Stain Sakura.
I think I got everything from that event the first time. I don't really care that much.
We got a couple new ships, but that's the usual.
Yeah, I'll probably throw some tentpoles. I don't know. I have to have time for that. And for Girls Frontline, yeah, I'm still playing Girls Frontline. I have been working on Isomer, but man, Isomer really doesn't want me to work on it. God, I think they did a bad thing that they do sometimes. They went too far in another direction. Because it has like normal and hard mode instinctively on it, right? And it's got a lot of story options.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only got a very small number of combat maps so far. I think they kind of went back to some older design philosophy that, as far as I can tell so far, a lot of these maps are like super convoluted. Like, they're not necessarily hard. A lot of them have pretty low combat ratings, but they're very finicky. They involve, unbeatable enemies moving in set patterns and whatever, and they're huge and have so many nodes, and I'm just like, God, fuck, where am I gonna farm fucking boxes, game? Huh?
Tyrannic King, yes, Omega did get his read. Lucky did not get a read. Lucky got other 6 stars. Oh yeah, that's reminds me. And Arknights, they had a nice little, they're having their 6-month anniversary, and they came out with this lovely little thing where you can get a guaranteed 6-star in one of these 3 packages that each had 3 6-stars in it.
Yeah.
Lucky went for the one that had Siege, Exercise, and Scotty in it because he still wants a fucking Scotty. He got another Exercise. His Exercise is like one from being perfect Exercise.
That'll happen. Apple pie power. I didn't buy that because I think actually Exy is the one that would be in the repeat that I would aim. No, it wouldn't be because he just said what was in there. It's the other one. It was the one with blah 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 blah, and I think it was Hoshi's in that one.
Yeah, it wasn't like Hoshi Chin and blah, blah, blah.
Yes, it's those, and I'm like, okay, I would not mind Aya Fiala, but still, you got to build up to that one, or Chen. But also, I roll in this game pretty regularly, so I just don't know if I feel like spending the money right now.
I haven't got a Scotty Spook yet, and it makes me cry inside.
I like Arknights enough that I'm still buying like monthly packs, and I'm still playing, and like the moment they come out with an event again, I'm gonna be up there. It's just right now it's a little slow roll for me. But yeah, that's all that. Lucky is still playing Destiny's Child.
Mm-hmm. I'm also playing Tales of Cristoria, but I'll save big thoughts on that for later.
Yeah, I was thinking I've noticed a lot of people jumped on that one, but we are at already almost 4 hours before editing, so we should probably put a pin in that one. We'll put a pin in that one. We will come back to Peace Talks more, and we will come back to Ghost of Tsushima maybe more, if Lucky actually has more thoughts besides just how cool it is.
It's cool!
So I think we have been going long enough that it is time to wrap up.
Yep.
Because I got to edit this. It's after midnight.
Womp womp.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Patreon loves Dragon episodes. They're all cool with it. Just have to wonder when this will be fucking rendered. Anyway. Okay, everybody. It's time to wrap up. So, if you watched this video on YouTube, be sure to give it a like if you liked it. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section down below. You can also join our Discord. That link is, as always, in the video description and on our channel page. And if you're new here and haven't already, please subscribe to our channel to always get our latest videos. And also, even if you're already subscribed, consider hitting that bell for notifications so you always know when we post a new video. And, of course, like it says at the front of the show, I know that was a long time ago, but we did say it. Consider supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early and lots of other goodies, and it really helps us out. So, yeah, you can get this in audio format, downloadable, those are $1 a month, it's cool. Mm-hmm. And then just check out the other stuff. Watch other videos we do. They exist. They do stuff. If you really liked all that tabletop stuff for the first hour and a half or whatever, watch all our APs. That's right, I said all of them. What are you doing? What do you got to do right now? It's like an audiobook, only longer and more uncut, with a lot more ums. Okay, it's time to go now.